Chapter 2105. The young disciple of the divine sword sect didn't seem to have a high status. Even if Yi Qinghan didn't give him face, he only dared to whisper but didn't dare to scold him loudly. Yi Qinghan smiled and ignored that person. However, as more and more people came, more and more experts came. They were all talking about the small secret realm and Xiaohe. The three of them didn't say much and listened quietly. Everyone was mocking the small secret realm and felt that the Xiaohe clan was deceiving the world. There was nothing worth exploring in that broken place, but they were only allowed to enter after paying so much every year. The more people said this, the more Yi Qinghan wanted to go in and see the small secret realm. Xiaohe Saint was born in a small family and didn't have any resources or foundation. He relied on the opportunity he obtained in the small secret realm to successfully step into the eternal saint realm. This meant that there must be something special about the small secret realm, but the world didn't find it and didn't have the opportunity. Yar Saint had entered the secret realm more than once. At this time, seeing Yi Qinghan's interest, he whispered, "There's really nothing to go in the small secret realm. A large number of experts enter every 10 years, but there's not even a high-grade sacred medicine. It's a barren land with scarce resources." Yi Qinghan smiled indifferently and didn't say anything. A few 100,000 was nothing to him. At least it satisfied his curiosity. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, Yi Qinghan brought the two of them back to their respective rooms. The exhaustion from the past few days had disappeared, and their souls were rapidly recovering. Yi Qinghan's soul had stabilized in the upper realm, but his body was still stuck in the complete middle realm. The bottleneck was protected by the prison heavenly Tao scripture and couldn't be broken. The runes on the bottleneck were dazzling and difficult to understand. Yi Qinghan's consciousness wandered and comprehended these runes and mysteries. He found that they had a lot to do with the sacred finger of destruction. The power of the sacred finger of destruction he displayed was thousands of miles away from the first sacred finger of destruction. Is the problem with these runes and mysteries? Yi Qinghan sat upright and observed the runes with his consciousness. His 10 fingers formed a seal and evolved the sacred finger of destruction in his sea of consciousness. Wuxia, the little person in his sea of consciousness, was like a nascent soul, vivid and lifelike. It looked exactly like him. Its aura was like a rainbow, and its might was monstrous. It formed a seal with its finger, wanting to destroy the heavens. The runes and mysteries at the bottleneck suddenly became clear at this moment. They subconsciously cooperated with Yi Qinghan's finger technique, but when he wanted to use them to cooperate with his finger technique, he was powerless. Is it because I'm not strong enough, or because I haven't fully comprehended the saint extermination finger and can't understand these mysteries and runes? Yi Qinghan frowned slightly. He closed his eyes and wrapped his consciousness around these mysterious runes, hoping to gain some insights and discoveries. Time flew by, and even he himself did not know how much time had passed. Several days later. Bang bang bang. A few short knocks on the door woke Yi Qinghan up. He gently opened his eyes, and the look in his eyes was even more shocking. It was hard not to feel respect and fear. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and restrained his aura. He waved his hand and opened the door. Seeing Yarsheng and Lin Wuqian standing at the door, he asked lightly, "What's wrong?" Lin Wuqian walked into the room and said respectfully, "Master, the little secret land has been open for 3 days, and you've been in seclusion for 8 days. I was afraid that it would delay your time to enter the little secret land, so I came to remind you." "Oh." Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows. He felt that only 3 days had passed, but he did not expect that 8 days had passed. Crack crack crack. Yi Qinghan shook his body, and his bones cracked. It seemed that he had not moved for several days. "You two go out and wait for me for a while." Yi Qinghan got up and gestured for the two of them to leave. After a simple wash, he changed into a set of ink-black clothes. His tall and straight golden body exuded a majestic and domineering aura. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan walked out of the room and closed the door. He said to the two who were guarding him, "Let's go and have a look." The little secret land was located at the northwest border of the ancient Xiahou capital. At the moment it was crowded with experts. Although everyone knew that there were no opportunities here, they still dreamed that one day, they would be able to obtain a saint-like opportunity. The Xiahou clan formed a law enforcement team. No one dared to act recklessly, so they could only queue up and enter. Not everyone can enter Xiahou Supreme's Tao preaching field. However, those who enter the little secret land have priority because they have the sincerity to prove their Tao. An elder of the Xiahou clan with fluttering white hair looked down at the crowd and said in a deep voice. Obviously, many people were here to watch the show. They did not intend to enter the little secret land. The Xiahou clan had issued a fake order to attract more people into the secret land. Xiahou he would never issue such an order. His temperament was similar to that of the chess saint. He did not like fame and wealth in the world. He only wanted to cultivate in a low profile, preach, and spread his own ideas. The Xiahou clan also wanted to make more money. That was why they used Xiahou he as a cover. However, Xiahou he did not know about it. Otherwise, they would have been severely punished. Yi Qinghan walked over from afar. Yarsheng and Lin Wuxian reached out their hands. Their auras were restrained, making them look like ordinary people. They looked at the Xiahou clan elder and said. It seemed that they had to enter the little secret land if they wanted to hear Xiahou he's preaching. What a cunning old fox. Isn't he afraid that old Master Xiahou will be angry? Yarsheng scolded in a low voice. Yi Qinghan sneered. If it were him, he would have done the same. Why not make money when there was money to be made? Line up. Let's go in and have a look. Even if we can't get anything, it's worth it to hear Xiahou he's preaching, Yi Qinghan said faintly. The little secret land had been open for 3 days, but there were still so many people lining up. It was unknown how many experts had entered. It was probably like a market. It wasn't easy to get 3 people in line. They paid a lot of faith money to enter the secret land. When he saw the mystic realm, Yi Qinghan was stunned. There was nothing in front of him. Groups of 3 to 5 people quickly rushed into the depths of the mystic realm. However, after rushing for several hundred miles, the scene was still the same. Not to mention high-grade saintly medicines, even the grass had been plucked out. A barren land. This was a barren land. It was cleaner than a desert. There was not even a thorn. Is this a fucking secret land? Yi Qinghan cursed. Cough, cough, Yarsheng coughed twice and nodded. I didn't expect this place to become like this after so many years. When I came here before, there were still some weeds in the periphery. Lin Wuxian was also speechless. If this was a small secret land, where else in the world wouldn't be a secret land? The Xiahou clan is too good at cheating people. This is clearly a scam. Lin Wuxian sneered. I've reminded you. In fact, everyone has the same idea. They all think that they are outstanding and one in a million existence. Yarsheng said self-deprecatingly. She was also like that in the past. In fact, she only found out in the end that she had been tricked, and tricked several times. Yi Qinghan touched his nose, feeling that he had also been tricked. However, since he was already here, he had to take a look. Chapter 2106. It wasn't just Yi Qinghan. Everyone felt cheated. How was this a secret territory? It was clearly a barren land that even beasts wouldn't want to come here. Ya, Sheng, how many times have you come to such a place? I admire you. Yi Qinghan shook his head and walked deeper into the secret territory. Ya, Sheng was speechless after hearing Yi Qinghan's words. She had come here with the belief that she was a unique existence. She didn't know that she was just an ordinary person. Perhaps she had run out of opportunities here. The three of them walked in the secret territory in a low-key manner. They saw a group of people cursing. Hundreds of thousands of dollars had been wasted. Who would be happy? Yi Qinghan looked at the dejected group and couldn't help but smile. He restrained his depressed aura and quickened his pace. A day later, the three of them entered the heart of the secret territory. The secret territory wasn't big, but there were some spiritual medicine mountains in the depths. The low-level spirit beasts here were even worse than emperor-level spirit beasts. Yi Qinghan arrived in front of a waterfall with decent spirit qi. Looking around, he realized that this was the only place with decent spirit qi in the entire mystic realm. Lin Wuxian stood with his sword and looked at the crystal-clear lake that extended to the shore. He found that the mountain on the opposite side seemed to be very regular. It didn't look like it was formed naturally. It looked more like it had been carved. It was just that it was a work of nature. Yi Qinghan and Ye Xing didn't care about such details. However, Lin Wuxian was an expert in sword techniques. He had a good grasp of every detail. Whoosh! Just as Yi Qinghan was about to leave, Lin Wuxian jumped into the water and kept diving. After diving for 30 or 40 meters, he found that there was a layer of mud below. However, there weren't stones under the mud. Instead, there were some iron plates made of divine iron. Lin Wuxian tried several times, but he couldn't break the iron plates. Instead, he swept up all the mud. The surface was muddy. Ye Sheng and Yi Qinghan looked at the lake in confusion. They didn't know what Lin Wuxian was trying to do. Whoosh! At this moment, Lin Wuxian rushed up from the bottom of the water. His whole body was wet, but his face was full of excitement. He whispered, "There's something underwater. Although I don't know what it is, it shouldn't be bad." Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows and asked suspiciously, "Are you having a stroke? If there really is something good, even if I can't find it, the divine bird should have found it. Even if the divine bird couldn't find it, the gold-devouring toad would have found it. I think you're hallucinating." Lin Wuxian was speechless. He scratched his head and pointed to the muddy river. "Master, if you don't believe me, you can go down and have a look. Or you can look at the mountains on the other side. Are there traces of carvings?" Yi Qinghan was taken aback. He carefully examined the rocks on the opposite shore and realized that there were some problems. If he did not look carefully, he would not be able to tell that it was a sculpture. It even looked like a person, but it was a person lying on the ground. Half of the person was submerged in the water. One hand was forming a seal, but he could not see it fully. Yarshing said in surprise, "It really does look like it." Yi Qinghan looked at the muddy river and saw that it extended into the distance along the river. It looked like a sleeping water dragon. Follow the river and see where it ends. If we release the water, we will be able to see the whole picture underwater. Yi Qinghan pointed to the riverbed and said. The three of them walked slowly, going deeper and deeper. Their speed became faster and faster. The secret territory was small, so the three of them quickly reached the end. There was an abyss in the depths, and the river was blocked by rocks. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and waved his hand. He slashed the mountain and the river with his saber. The barrier was broken, and the river rushed into the abyss. The flood lasted for 2 days. Yi Qinghan and the others found a problem. Why hasn't the water level dropped? Yi Qinghan whispered. Yarsheng was also surprised. The river seemed to have an endless flow of water. There was such a big gap in the river, but the water level did not drop. Our method should be wrong. However, we have to release the water. This is definitely the right way, Lin Wuxian said with certainty. The three of them thought for a moment and jumped into the sky, overlooking the mountains, rivers, and the winding dragon. Yi Qinghan pointed at the 7 inches below the dragon's head and said, if this river is man-made, then there must be a set of rules. For example, If this river is a dragon, then there must be a mechanism at its 7 inches. Otherwise, who would be able to find the mechanism? Are you leaving this opportunity for ghosts? Do you mean that we can release the water here if we look for the opportunity at the 7 inches below? Lin Wuxian asked. Yi Qinghan nodded and swooped down. He said faintly, let's go down and try. Whoosh! The 3 of them rushed to the bottom of the river. The mud was about half a meter deep and could block their divine senses. They worked together to clean up the mud and found that there was really a large intact iron plate below. It was like an iron wall. The stone plate was intact and there were no traces of cracks, let alone any mechanism. Yi Qinghan's eyes were like torches as he groped at the bottom of the river, looking for the mechanism. The muddy river water could not block his vision. The 7 inches of the river was very big. After all, the river was too long. The 3 of them searched for a long time, but they still could not find the real mechanism. Yi Qinghan tried to tear the iron plate with gravity force, but the iron plate was as hard as an immortal material. There were a lot of runes engraved on it, but they were messy and disorderly, so he could not see anything. After a long time, Yi Qinghan suddenly felt a force behind him. He looked back and found Lin Wuxian waving at him not far away. Yi Qinghan and Yarsheng swam toward Lin Wuxian at the same time. They found that he was stepping on a tab that was fastened to the iron plate. There were no cracks around it, so they did not know what the tab was for. We can't pull up the whole iron plate, right? Yi Qinghan muttered to himself. Lin Wuxian did not pull the tab, afraid that it would cause some side effects. This tab must be a mechanism. Let's pull it together, Yi Qinghan said telepathically. The tab was about 1 meter in diameter. Yi Qinghan grabbed the center and pulled it up like a willow tree. Yarsheng and Lin Wuxian helped on both sides, using their divine power to pull it up. Boom! Whoosh! Just as the 3 of them pulled the tab, the originally intact iron plate separated from the center of the river and sank down on its own. The mud and river water at the bottom of the river were instantly emptied. Without the pressure of the river water and mud, the runes on the iron plate quickly reformed and shone brightly, shocking the entire secret realm. Whoosh! The iron plate shrunk infinitely, forming a scripture that included all the runes and mysteries on the iron plate. Then, the entire riverbed disappeared, and the stars moved. A wave of air swept through the secret realm. Everything changed, and the spiritual energy became abundant again. The Immortals. The 3 of them stood on the ruins of the riverbed, which had now become a depression. There was no river water, and even the sculptures on the riverbank had disappeared. Amazing! I have never seen a secret realm like this before, Yarsheng exclaimed. Yi Qinghan was also shocked. He looked at the scripture floating in the air and waved his hand to pick it up. He found that the words on the scripture were not the common language of eternal world, nor were they the words of other worlds. There was not even the slightest bit of similarity. This was a heavenly scripture. He could not recognize a single word. Chapter 2107. The heavenly book emitted a holy light that shook heaven and earth. Countless experts looked over. Before Yi Qinghan and the others could leave, they were surrounded by a sea of people. It was impossible for them to leave. They got the Immortals. They got the sage's scripture. Whoosh! The roar shocked countless experts. They looked at Yi Qinghan and the others differently. They were filled with naked greed and desire, and murderous intent filled the air. Yi Qinghan and Lin Wuxian were shocked. They stood in front of Yarsheng, one holding a sword and the other holding a saber. They looked at the crowd coldly. Yi Qinghan's makeup had long been washed away by the river. He had regained his true appearance, but not many people knew him. After all, this place was too far away from his activities. Snatch it. It's the sage's scripture. Someone said, stirring up the hearts of the people. Some violent experts could no longer endure and rushed forward. Whoosh! 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 Boom! 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 Saber light and sword shadows instantly surrounded Yi Qinghan. The destructive power tore through mountains, rocks, and riverbeds. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's aura fluctuated. He mobilized his divine power to form a defensive boundary. Even with the support of his Taoist robe, he was bombarded by so many people and was forced to retreat dozens of steps. His face was pale. Whoosh! 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 Clear footprints were engraved on the ground. The three of them retreated together. They did not want to fight this group of people. After all, there were too many of them. However, they were surrounded by experts. Even if some of them did not make a move, they were staring at the sage's scripture in Yi Qinghan's hands. Whoosh! Boom! Light shone in all directions. The destructive power was not something a middle or upper-level expert could contend with alone. Even Xia Jiulong could not do anything about it. I'll resist. You think of a way to take Yerxing away first. Yi Qinghan roared. His aura soared into the sky. Domineering aura filled his body. His long saber crossed the void and directly charged into the crowd. As soon as he entered the crowd, he was like a wolf in a flock of sheep. He was unstoppable and his aura was like a rainbow. Whoosh! Whoosh! Boom! Yi Qinghan's long saber swept horizontally, cutting people and their weapons in half. However, there were too many people, and the long saber restrained his strength. He put away the long saber and used his fists and long legs to continuously break the divine weapons. His elbows directly smashed through their necks. Get lost! You don't even know me, so what are you trying to do? Yi Qinghan let out a furious roar. His energy soared to the heavens as he stomped his foot, shattering mountains and rivers. The earth cracked as the great abyss tore 1,000 li apart. He punched through an upper-level expert, causing the corpse to explode in the air. The shockwave swept out and sent the surrounding experts flying. Yi Qinghan was like a meat on a hot knife. Wherever he went, he would take a large number of lives. Blood flowed like a river. After killing for more than an hour, he forcibly tore open a hole and directly sent Lin Wutian and Ye, Saint out of the encirclement. His Taoist robe was dyed red with blood, making it even harder for people to recognize him. Who is he? Could it be Xia Jiulong? Impossible. I've seen Xia Jiulong before. He's definitely not Xia Jiulong. Everyone was constantly pushed back by Yi Qinghan. Every time he took a step forward, they would take 3 steps back. They didn't dare to resist. Yi Qinghan's blood surged. His eyes were like lightning as he glared at the crowd and sneered, Xia Jiulong is here. Today, he'll have to get out of my way. If you don't want to die, get lost. What an arrogant brat. How can an ant like you possess the saint scripture? Hand over the saint scripture and this old man will spare your life today. Just as everyone was hesitating, a powerful aura enveloped 1,000 li. Then, a white-haired old man with a transcendent aura appeared in front of everyone. His aura was actually comparable to Yi Qinghan's. Yi Qinghan narrowed his eyes as he stared at the old man who suddenly appeared. He sneered and said, "Who do you think you are? You're just a person at the peak of the upper level. You want to snatch something from me? You should at least inquire about my identity before acting arrogant. Who are you? How do you know who this old man is?" The white-haired old man looked like a transcendent being, but in fact, he was a sinister villain who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. He was the sect master of the Xiaohou Sacred Grounds earth-controlling sect. He had achieved great mastery in the earth element. Today, he came to the secret realm to meet Xiaohou He, hoping to get some guidance from her. Yi Qinghan sneered. His aura fluctuated and shook off all the blood on his Taoist robe. The Yin-Yang 8 trigrams Taoist robe appeared. His identity was obvious. I don't know who you are, but my identity should be much nobler than yours. Yi Qinghan said coldly. Hiss. Everyone gasped. Although they didn't know Yi Qinghan, they would be ignorant if they didn't know about the Yin-Yang 8 trigrams Taoist robe. A true disciple of the sky-piercing immortal school. Isn't she supposed to be a beautiful fairy? Yeah, I think I remember her name is Fan Yin. How did the fairy become a man? Is it fake? Everyone was discussing and doubting Yi Qinghan's identity. However, Yi Qinghan had done a lot of earth-shattering things in recent years, especially during the heaven worship ceremony. Many people knew that even Xia Jiulong couldn't do anything to him. I know who he is. He's Yi Qinghan. He's an existence that couldn't defeat Xia Jiulong in 3 moves. Finally, a young genius recognized Yi Qinghan and said in shock. Yi Qinghan. Many people were familiar with this name, but they had never seen him in person. The sect master of the earth-controlling sect stared at Yi Qinghan. His eyes flashed. He wasn't afraid of Yi Qinghan, but he was afraid of the sky-piercing immortal school behind Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan raised the corner of his mouth and said disdainfully, "You know my identity. Do you still want me to take out the saint's scripture? You want to steal my saint's scripture? Do you think you can survive after reaching the saint's realm?" The sect master of the earth-controlling sect smiled awkwardly. He cupped his fists and said, "So it's a disciple of the sky-piercing immortal school. This old man is ashamed that he didn't know his own family. I'm the sect master of the earth-controlling sect, Huang Yun. I have a good relationship with Taoist Jiu Ji and Taoist Wen Su. Don't worry, as long as I'm here today, no one will steal your saint's scripture." Looking at the old man's serious expression, Yi Qinghan snorted inwardly. However, since the old man had admitted defeat, there was no need for him to take things too far. It would be bad for him. After all, in the world of martial arts, it was better to have one more friend than one more enemy. So it's Sect Master Huang. This junior has been rude. Yi Qinghan cupped his fists and said indifferently. Huang Yun pretended to laugh and said, "Ha ha ha, you have a high status. You're a true disciple of the great sage. This old man doesn't dare to call you senior in front of you. Let's be friends of the same generation." Yi Qinghan smiled indifferently. He was very polite. Just as the two were exchanging pleasantries, the sky suddenly condensed. Time and space were imprisoned, and countless experts couldn't move. Yi Qinghan was shocked. He looked up into the distance and saw an ordinary old man walking over. His hair was as black as ink, and his face was like a mortal. He had experienced the vicissitudes of life, kindness, and kindness. Although he was powerful, he was somewhat approachable like the chess sage. Xiahou He. Yi Qinghan looked at this person's aura and instantly thought of someone. He couldn't help but look at Yarsheng. Yarsheng nodded repeatedly. She had seen Xiahou He before, so Xiahou He should also remember her. After all, she was the saintess of the Oshi Holy Land. Chapter 2108. Xiahou He stepped through the air. Although he seemed to be moving slowly, it took only the blink of an eye for him to appear in front of everyone. Huang Yun was also shocked. He hadn't expected Xiahou He to arrive at this time. He hurriedly bowed and said, "Junior Huang Yun of the Earth Control Sect greets Master Xiahou." Xiahou He nodded faintly, then looked at Yi Qinghan, and Lin Wutian. "Greetings, Master Xiahou." Yi Qinghan and the other two bowed at the same time. Whoosh! In an instant, everyone fell to their knees. They'd entered the secret realm to see Xiahou He. How could they not be excited? "Greetings, Master Xiahou." Xiahou He nodded and waved a hand for everyone to rise. "Rise, all of you. There's no need to be so formal." "Many thanks, Master Xiahou." Everyone looked excited. They wanted nothing more than to throw themselves at Xiahou He and hug him, hoping for some guidance. However, Xiahou He's gaze never left Yi Qinghan and Ye. After a moment, he said calmly, "The three of you, come with me." With that, Xiahou He waved his hand and took the three away. His figure flashed and he left the secret realm. Moments later, he arrived at the most prosperous Xiahou ancestral grounds in the ancient capital. The four landed in a garden. Xiahou He walked into a pavilion and sat down, staring at the three. Junior Ye greets Master Xiahou. Ye bowed respectfully. Junior Yi Qinghan, disciple of the Heavenspan sect's Heavenspan sage, greets Master Xiahou. Yi Qinghan pointed at Lin Wuxian and introduced him. "This child is my disciple, Lin Wuxian." Lin Wuxian hurriedly bowed and said, "Junior greets Master Xiahou." Xiahou He looked at Ye and Yi Qinghan and said coolly, "You two hold high positions. Since you're passing through the Xiahou sacred land, why don't you issue a customs clearance document? At the very least, let the Holy Land protect you as you leave. Otherwise, if something happens, whose responsibility is it?" Yi Qinghan bitterly smiled. "Senior, you don't know, but we haven't even sent out the official documents yet. We disguised ourselves as adventurers and mercenaries, and in just a few short decades, when we passed by the blessed Buddha Temple's Blackwind stronghold, we were ambushed. None of the 33 upper-level guardians of the Oshi Holy Land survived, so how could we dare to trust others?" Who was Xiahou He? How could he not know that Yi Qinghan and Yer Saint were escorting the elixir to the Holy Land of Oshi? He was now about to become a sage. Everything was ready except for the east wind. If there was an elixir of immortality, it would be his east wind. He was looking forward to it the most. Xiahou He looked at Yi Qinghan and sighed. "Sect Master Yi, I wonder if I could sell you an immortal pill. This old man is willing to pay any price." Immortal pills were extremely precious. That was the symbol of an eternal sage, a priceless treasure. Yi Qinghan didn't even consider it. He shook his head and said, "It's not that I don't want to give you face, senior, but the elixirs have already been distributed. I don't have any left." How could Xiahou He not know that Yi Qinghan was talking nonsense? It was impossible to distribute all the immortal elixirs. Yi Qinghan must have 2 more immortal elixirs, but he didn't want to give them away. Xiahou He squeezed out a smile and said, "Since Sect Master Yi doesn't want to give them up, I won't force you. However, since we're fated to meet today, it's also karma. If you have any questions about cultivation, feel free to ask me. I'll help you as much as I can. In a few days, I'll send someone to escort you out of the Xiahou Holy Land. Otherwise, I can't bear the responsibility if something happens." Yi Qinghan didn't want to sell his elixirs, so naturally, he didn't want to accept any benefits. He could only nod repeatedly, but didn't ask any questions. After all, there were people behind him who could help him solve any problems. The Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage, the Green Lotus Sword Immortal, and the Chess Supremacy were all far more powerful than Xiahou He. Xiahou He looked at Yi Qinghan and the others and said, "In that case, this old man will make a deal with you. I can help you solve your questions. Sect Master Yi, can you let me take a look at the sage's scripture you just obtained?" Yi Qinghan didn't recognize a single word of the sage's scripture. If it wasn't especially valuable, he would have thrown it away long ago. Therefore, when Xiahou He mentioned it, he offered it with both hands. The characters on the scripture had never been seen before. The mysterious runes were completely different from the other scriptures. It didn't look like the Tao scripture of imprisonment either. In Yi Qinghan's eyes, it was a pile of waste paper. Xiahou He took the scripture and frowned. He found that it was completely different from the scripture of the Xiahou Holy Land. There was no connection at all. "Did you really get this in the secret realm?" Xiahou He asked suspiciously. Yi Qinghan nodded affirmatively and replied firmly, I wouldn't dare lie to you, senior. I really did get this in the secret realm. However, this is my disciple Wutian's opportunity. He was the one who found the place where the scripture of the sage was hidden. Xiahou he glanced at Lin Wutian and said with certainty, you were born with the bone of a sage and have the help of a benefactor. You can easily become a sage in this life. Lin Wutian didn't look happy. He was very calm, as if he was determined to become a sage. However, he still bowed and thanked him, thank you for your praise, senior. This is all thanks to my master. Without him, I wouldn't be here today. Yi Qinghan smiled and said faintly, your master can show you the way, but your cultivation depends on you. This is your own talent and will. It has nothing to do with me. Don't belittle yourself. You don't have to praise each other. Everyone has their own opportunities. This scripture of the sage is Lin Wutian's opportunity. It was given by God. Even if we study it, it will be difficult for us to become a sage. We can't even understand this scripture of the sage. He must be the only one who can understand it. Take it. Xiahou he shook his head. He was very open-minded, unlike the others who fought like crazy for the scripture of the sage. He threw it to Lin Wutian. Lin Wutian bowed and thanked him. He took the scripture of the sage. It seems that this secret realm is really special. When my ancestor found the scripture of the sage here, he thought it was just an ordinary secret realm. I didn't expect that after thousands of years, a new scripture of the sage would appear. Xiahou he slowly got up. His figure flashed and he came to the entrance of the secret realm. He said to the Xiahou clansmen, announce the end of the trial and dismiss everyone in the secret realm. From now on, without the permission of the 10 great elders of the clan, the secret realm is not allowed to be opened to the outside world. The Xiahou clansmen naturally knew that another scripture of the sage had appeared in the secret realm. They were regretting it. Before they could make a decision, Xiahou he made it in advance. Give them double the money and lead them to the martial arts field in the ancestral land of the Xiahou clansmen. I will teach them to make it up to them. Xiahou he said faintly and turned to leave. Yi Qinghan, Yar Sheng, and Lin Wutian stayed in the garden and looked at each other, especially Yi Qinghan and Lin Wutian. They didn't know Xiahou he at all. Now, they not only had the immortal elixir but also the scripture of the sage. If Xiahou he wanted to rob them, the three of them wouldn't be able to compete with him. Chapter 2109. In the garden, the three of them sat in the pavilion and waited. Yi Qinghan also inquired about Xiahou he's character from your saint. His initial evaluation was that he was similar to the chess saint, but one could never judge a book by its cover. No one was sure if Xiahou he was the second chess saint. Yi Qinghan looked at the garden. After all, the Xiahou ancient capital was an existence that had stood in the world for countless years. It was even older than the Xiahou saint and was worthy of being studied by countless people. The architectural forms of the ancient capital were very similar. It was ancient and solemn. It had more spirituality than some sacred cities, as if it was a living city. Yi Qinghan observed for a long time and couldn't sit still anymore. He strolled around the ancient site, looking for its life trajectory and comprehending its historical rings. The traces of time were everywhere. Yar Saint had been here before. In fact, every time he went to the east from the Oshi sacred ground, this was a place he had to pass through. In the past, he would bring a customs clearance document and the Xiahou sacred ground would send someone to welcome him and arrange his accommodation. Therefore, he was very familiar with this ancient site. Mr. Yi, this is the birthplace of the Xiahou saint. Back then, the Xiahou clan was only a medium-sized clan. It was not a wealthy clan, nor was it one of the 3,000-strong sections. However, because a saint was born in this city, it was blessed by the heavens and earth, recognized by all laws, and blessed by mysterious runes. The saint also recited many scriptures here many times. That's why this city has stood here proudly for so many years. There's nothing special about it. Yar Saint said crisply. Yi Qinghan smiled faintly and shook his head. That's what's special about it. Sword City, sky-reaching cult's top 3 schools, and other places are not the birthplaces of saints. You should be able to see the difference between the Xiaohe ancient capital and them. That is, there's a majesty in the ancient capital that comes from its bones. It doesn't allow the world to profane it. The mysterious runes and great Tao around it are far purer than the saint's aura. In fact, many people have overlooked this point. Otherwise, comprehending this city is enough to become an existence like Xiaohe. Yar Sheng was suddenly enlightened. His eyes flashed as he realized the problem. It's no wonder that many saints have forgotten their birthplace. Only the Xiaohe ancient capital has become so majestic and ancient. It turns out that Saint Xiaohe did not forget this place after he cultivated to the saint realm. He even lived here for a period of time, reciting sutras and spreading his teachings to the world. Yar Saint murmured. This city bestowed Saint Xiaohe with eternity. Saint Xiaohe reciprocated, allowing the city to receive the care of heaven and earth, allowing it to stand eternally in the world. Yi Qinghan smiled faintly and said, therefore, the great Tao contained in this city is not inferior to that of an eternal saint. Everyone underestimated this city. After Yi Qinghan finished speaking, he completely immersed himself in the city and began to comprehend it. He casually strolled along the streets and looked at the city. He didn't need to use his eyes to look at it, he just needed to use his heart to look. Lin Wuqian and Yar Saint guarded him on his left and right, afraid that someone would suddenly attack him. Yi Qinghan's mental state was extremely relaxed. He did not have any defenses. His soul slowly wandered around the ancient capital, hoping to gain its recognition. Time flew by. Yi Qinghan walked for about 6 to 8 hours, but he did not trigger the ancient capital's soul. This was because he lacked the bloodline of the Xiaohe family. To gain the recognition of the ancient Xiaohe city, he needed perseverance and willpower that surpassed that of mortals. The first day passed just like that. Xiaohe he watched Yi Qinghan walk on the streets from afar. His consciousness wandered, and his pure eyes contained a firm will. He was rather surprised. Is he, trying to trigger the ancient capital and obtain the profound mysteries of the laws it contains? Xiaohe he was stunned. His body trembled as he muttered to himself in shock, he actually thought of this step. I've been here so many times. Why didn't I think of it? Xiaohe he's face glowed. His aura suddenly changed. He stepped out of the building, and his soul covered the entire ancient city. He merged with the city, wanting to merge with the ancient city and trigger the great Tao. Xiaohe he's state of mind was extremely strong. He was many times stronger than Yi Qinghan, and he also had the bloodline of the Xiaohe family. In just a moment, the entire ancient city seemed to have come alive. Pressure soared into the sky, and the sound of nature reverberated for millions of miles. It's finally here, a voice appeared in Xiaohe he's sea of consciousness. However, only he heard it. Even Yi Qinghan did not hear it. Yi Qinghan's comprehension had become Xiaohe he's wedding dress. Whoosh, the ancient city shone brightly. Thousands of great Taos enveloped the ancient capital, bathing Xiaohe he in holy light. His aura was in harmony with the heavens and the city. The holy light defied the heavens and changed fate. It replaced the blood of mortals and created the body of a saint. Buzz. The sound of nature reverberated between heaven and earth. Tens of thousands of laws rose and fell. The eyes of the heavens opened, making the ancient capital of Xiaohe look especially majestic. Yi Qinghan was dumbfounded. He didn't expect that he hadn't triggered the mysteries of the city for such a long time. It had reminded Xiaohe that he didn't need any elixirs to reach this step. Fuck, you've given him a big favor, the divine bird said unwillingly. Yi Qinghan was also very helpless. This was originally his opportunity, but he did not have the bloodline of the Xiahou family. He could only work for others. Everything had karma. Everything was predestined. This was the will of the heavens. Yi Qinghan could not overturn the will of the heavens. Yarsheng trembled and shouted excitedly, "He's become a saint. He's actually become a saint. Mr. Ye's theory is indeed correct. We've all neglected the city itself, a saint that was rarely seen in 1,000,000 years had proven the Tao. In just 1,000 years, they had witnessed two. Ches Saint, Xiahou He. Ches Saint's position as a saint was completely dependent on himself. However, Xiahou He was enlightened by Yi Qinghan. It was difficult for a saint to repay such a favor in his life. Xiahou He reached his palms into the sky and muttered to himself in a low voice, "So that's how it is. I've waited for countless years in vain. I was blinded by a single leaf, but I was enlightened by a child." His majestic voice was like rolling thunder, vast and mighty in the sky. Whoosh! Heaven and earth were covered in golden light, acknowledging Xiahou He's position as a saint. When a saint proved the Tao, the great Tao rumbled. At this moment, all the eternal saints knew that there was another eternal saint in the world. Boom! A majestic aura appeared in the sacred city of the Xiahou clan. His gaze pierced through the void and saw Xiahou He in the ancient capital of Xiahou. He was immediately overjoyed. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Our Xiahou clan has another saint. Our ancestors should be gratified. Xiahou Supreme laughed wildly. With another saint, their strength doubled. In the past, they were inferior to the War clan and the Blessed Buddha Temple. Now, they had surpassed the War clan and the Blessed Buddha Temple. This was the power of a saint. Hum. Buddhist hymns filled the sky. The Blessed Buddha of the Blessed Buddha Temple rushed into the void and faced the scorching sun. His Buddhist light illuminated the world as he looked down on all life. He stared at Xiahou He in the depths of the sacred city with a trace of unwillingness in his eyes. The Xiahou sacred land was located a little to the west of the Blessed Buddha Temple. The two sacred lands bordered each other. If the other was strong, they would be weaker. Not even the War clan would be willing to see the Xiahou sacred land gain another eternal saint, let alone the Blessed Buddha Temple. Chapter 21:10. The Blessed Buddha Lord looked coldly at the Xiahou sacred land. The pressure was mounting. To the north was the War tribe, to the east was the eternal sacred land of Sword Tao, and to the west was the Xiahou sacred land. Everyone was growing stronger. Only the Blessed Buddha Temple remained stagnant. How could they not feel pressured? When the War tribe gains another eternal saint, the Blessed Buddha Temple's position will only grow weaker. Our space for survival will also shrink. In the end, we will disappear into history without a trace. The Blessed Buddha Lord felt an unprecedented sense of panic. In the Xiahou ancient capital, all living beings cheered. All the mysteries of the Xiahou ancient capital had been bestowed upon Xiahou He. His cultivation was on par with Xiahou sovereigns. Xiahou He felt his strength rising steadily, surpassing even that of his ancestors. His entire body was filled with laws and power. He could shatter mountains and rivers with a wave of his hand. He could no longer suppress his excitement. On the street, Yi Qinghan couldn't help but smile wryly. He'd worked so hard for so long, but couldn't compare to Xiahou He's actions. It seemed that this was his ancestral land after all. This was his opportunity, not his. No matter how hard he worked, it wouldn't be his. He looked at the kneeling Xiahou He, who was devoutly watching the inheritance in the air. Xiahou He had received the acknowledgement of heaven, earth, and the ancient capital. His strength rose rapidly, surpassing Xiahou's sovereign in the process. This was an opportunity. Some people worked hard for their entire lives, but couldn't compare to someone else's inheritance. Rich kids are amazing, said the divine bird with jealousy. Yi Qinghan smiled indifferently, waiting for Xiahou He to complete the inheritance and the blessing of heaven. After a full day and night, Xiahou He finally completed the process. His cultivation approached the eternal saint realm. Beyond that, he would be a great saint. Xiahou's sovereign crossed hundreds of ancient cities to arrive at the ancient capital. He looked at the place where he was born and raised, unaware that such a great secret was hidden here. The power of heaven and earth was forever unfathomable to man. No matter how strong a man became, he was still as weak as an ant in front of the heavens. My son, congratulations. You'll be able to reach the heavens in a single bound. Supreme Xiahou was all smiles as he sincerely congratulated her. Xiahou He opened his eyes. His gaze was like a torch. The might of a saint filled the air. Holy light flowed through his body. He bowed slightly and said, "Greetings, ancestor. This is all thanks to the ancestral land." Xiahou shook his head with a smile. "This is your fortuitous encounter." "I don't know the fortuitous encounter of this place." Xiahou He looked at Yi Qinghan and waved his hand to bring the three over, entering the great hall of the ancestral land with Xiahou Jizun. "Patriarch, you must have seen these three people before. They are your saint of the Oshi Holy Land, Yi Qinghan, a disciple of the Piercing Sky Immortal Cult. The other one is Yi Qinghan's disciple, Lin Wuxian. It's all thanks to this Yi Qinghan that I was able to discover the opportunity in the Xiahou ancestral land. I should thank him." The great hall was resplendent and resplendent. Xiahou Jizun looked much older than Xiahou He. He looked at Yi Qinghan and naturally knew who he was. Xiahou Jizun looked at Yi Qinghan and smiled. Who among the younger generation wouldn't recognize a troublemaker who isn't even afraid of Xia Jiulong? Who would have thought that you would be the one to turn the Xiahou sacred land upside down, brat? Yi Qinghan hadn't expected Xiahou Jizun to evaluate him like this. He could only smile awkwardly and bow. "Greetings, Xiahou Jizun. This junior greets you." Your saint greets Xiahou Jizun. Lin Wuxian and your saint bowed in unison. Xiahou Jizun smiled and slowly sat down in the main seat. He gestured with his hand. "Sit down, all of you. There are no outsiders here. There's no need to stand on ceremony." Yi Qinghan, our saint, and Lin Wuxian first congratulated Xiahou He on becoming a saint before sitting down. Xiahou He's face was full of gratitude. He really needed to thank Yi Qinghan this time. Without him, he wouldn't have thought of comprehending a city in his lifetime. "What do you three want? Just tell me. If I can do it for you, I'll definitely do it for you," Xiahou He said happily. Yi Qinghan didn't dare accept such a gift. Even if he'd done a great favor for a saint, he didn't dare ask for anything in return. The position of a saint was recognized by heaven and earth. If he accepted it, wouldn't he be admitting that he was on par with the great Tao of heaven? "You're too kind, Saint He. This junior didn't do anything. As you said, this is your opportunity. No one can take it away from you. Even if I hadn't reminded you, you would have discovered it anyway," Yi Qinghan hurriedly said with a bow. Xiahou He felt apologetic and guilty. He felt that if he didn't return this favor, he wouldn't feel at ease for the rest of his life. Looking at Yi Qinghan, he said indifferently, "Xiahou, you don't have to worry about him. I'm afraid that this guy's foundation isn't inferior to mine. Just talking about immortal pills alone, he has as many as 2. I heard that Xia Jiulong brought more than 200 experts to stop him in the Coiling Dragon Island some time ago, but only 12 of them came back. That's a heavy loss. On the other hand, this brat has gained quite a lot of benefits. I'm afraid that some of those resources are something that both you and I covet." Xiahou Supreme looked at Yi Qinghan as if they had known each other for millions of years. He knew Yi Qinghan's temperament very well. With just a few words, he made Yi Qinghan look for a crack in the ground. Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly. Since the other party had said so, if he didn't express his gratitude, they would become strangers in the future. These 4,000 heavenly spirit saint stones are a gift from this junior to you two saints. I hope you won't be polite with me. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan waved his hand and took out 4,000 heavenly spirit saint stones. They were bathed in holy light and filled with spiritual qi. How generous! This made Xiahou Supreme confused, let alone Xiahou He, who had just become a saint. They had saved up for so many years and didn't have many heavenly spirit saint stones. Xiahou He only had a few dozen pieces. Yi Qinghan gave them 4,000 pieces at once. It was enough to make them go wild with joy. The heavenly spirit saint stones were divided into 2 pieces, each of which was 2,000 pieces. They appeared in front of the 2 eternal saints. Such an act of goodwill might be useless, but it might save his life. Everything had a cause and effect. Yi Qinghan hoped that the good karma he had planted this time would bear fruit in the future. Yi Qinghan said firmly. He also hoped to give away these 4,000 heavenly spirit saint stones. The 2 saints were overjoyed. After all, they could use it. They didn't stand on ceremony with Yi Qinghan anymore. No wonder the great sage and the chess sage like you so much. You really know how to conduct yourself. Xiahou Supreme sighed. Yi Qinghan smiled sheepishly and replied in a low-key manner, "You flatter me, saints. This is what I should do. I found these heavenly spirit saint stones on the island. There aren't many of them and I can't use them. I might as well give them to the seniors. I hope you can find some good opportunities." Xiahou Supreme nodded repeatedly, full of admiration for Yi Qinghan. He asked, "Are you married yet? Do you mind having 1 or 2 more? There are many beautiful women in the Xiahou sacred land. They are all good wives and mothers. If you are interested, I can introduce you to a few more." Yi Qinghan's forehead was sweating. He hadn't given away so many heavenly spirit saint stones to marry a few beautiful women. Therefore, he shook his head repeatedly and said firmly, "I already have a wife, but I don't know what to do with a few beauties. Senior, please spare me." Ha ha ha, Xiahou he was so amused that he stroked his beard repeatedly. Not long after, the auras of saints appeared in the sky above the ancient Xiahou capital. Evidently, the eternal saints of the various sacred lands had come to congratulate Yi Qinghan, discuss the Tao, and comprehend the heavenly Tao. Chapter 21:11. The sages came from all over the place. The blessed Buddha Lord was the first to arrive, followed by the Zhan clan elder, Ancestor Zhan. With the return of the saints, there would definitely be another ceremony to worship the heavens. This was the best opportunity for the heavens to bestow blessings. However, there was only one chance in a person's life. Even if there was a great opportunity to receive a second blessing from the heavens, the favor received would be greatly reduced. Yi Qinghan and Ye Saint obviously did not need to participate in the heaven worship ceremony. However, Yi Qinghan hoped that the group from the insane sect could participate because the heaven worship ceremony was a great opportunity. If they could obtain the sage techniques, their lives would be worth it. The 2 Xiahou sages were looking for the eternal sages who were constantly rushing over. Yi Qinghan sat cross-legged in his courtyard, thinking about how to get the people from the insane sect to participate in the heaven worship ceremony. It's too far across the blessed Buddha temple's territory. Moreover, the blessed Buddha temple is our enemy. How can we get them to participate in the ceremony quickly and safely? Yi Qinghan lowered his head and muttered to himself. It was obvious that he would be staying in the Xiahou ancient capital for a while. He could go and propose marriage at any time, but it would be a loss if he missed a sage's heaven worship ceremony. Don't think that it's easy to become a sage just because 2 sages had recently confirmed their Tao. Don't think that participating in the heaven worship ceremony is a once-in-a-million-years opportunity. Yi Qinghan knew how precious the opportunity to participate in the heaven worship ceremony was. He regretted not knowing about it the first time. He must not let the people from the insane sect miss the opportunity last time. A few days later, the date of the heaven worship ceremony was announced. It would be held 15 years later, giving the people of the world a chance to meet the sages. Yi Qinghan thought for a long time and decided to ask the chess sovereign for help. He then went to find Xiahou Jizun. Xiahou Jizun was entertaining some sages who had just arrived. When he heard that Yi Qinghan had come to meet him, he did not refuse and went out to welcome him personally. "Little Yi Qinghan, why are you looking for this old man?" Xiahou Jizun looked at Yi Qinghan and asked. Yi Qinghan bowed and said, "Senior, please do me a small favor." "Say it." "This old man won't reject anything that I can help you with," Xiahou Supreme replied straightforwardly. Yi Qinghan immediately said, "Can you use your connections to contact Chess Saint from the Sword Dao Great Eternal Sacred Ground and ask him to bring the Kuang sect's members to the heaven worshipping ceremony when he passes by the heaven suppressing palace?" Xiahou Sovereign glared at Yi Qinghan and asked, "How many people are there in your proud sect?" "I can't arrange any more than that." Yi Qinghan smiled, raised 4 fingers and said, "It's only about 40 people. It's easy to arrange. Senior, please fulfill my little wish. After all, my Kuang sect is a small sect. If I don't cherish such a good opportunity, I don't know when I'll get another one." Xiahou Sovereign was rather surprised that there were only 40-odd people in a single sect. Even the smallest sect would have more than 100 people, not to mention that Yi Qinghan, the sect lord, had a decent status and cultivation base. "It's easy to contact Chess Saint, but whether he agrees to help you or not, that's between the two of you." "I can't do anything about it," Xiahou Supreme said frankly. Yi Qinghan nodded, believing that Chess Saint would definitely be willing to help. Xiahou Supreme formed a seal with his palms and quickly controlled the Tao of Heaven through his saint position. A saint technique pierced through the clouds and the stars moved, rushing towards the east. Chess Saint and Great Eternal Saint from the Sword Dao Great Eternal Sacred Ground had yet to depart. Chess Saint was comprehending the saint technique with the galaxy as the chessboard and the stars as the chess pieces. With a wave of his hand, the heaven and earth shifted and the time and space changed. Suddenly, a saint light appeared in the galaxy. Chess Saint waved his hand and unlocked the message in the saint light. He didn't expect it to be Xiahou Supreme. On one hand, it was an invitation, and on the other, it was a message for Yi Qinghan. This brat can actually get Xiahou Supreme to send a message for him. Chess Saint smiled and dispersed the stars. He stepped into the sacred chess peak and found the Great Eternal Sword Dao Great Eternal Saint. He bowed slightly and said, "Senior brother, Yi Qinghan asked me to help lead the Kuang sect's people to participate in the heaven worship ceremony. I'll have to trouble you with the Sword Dao sect's disciples." The Great Eternal Sword Dao Great Eternal Saint's eyebrows were sharp and his eyes were frightening. He glanced at Chess Saint indifferently and reminded, "Junior brother, Yi Qinghan and Xia Jiulong are fighting happily now. It's not good for you to take sides now, is it?" Chess Saint smiled and said, "This is between them. I'm just helping out. It's not considered taking sides. Senior brother, you worry too much. I won't drag the Sword Dao Great Eternal Sacred Ground into this mess." The Great Eternal Sword Dao Great Eternal Saint knew how powerful the sacred nation was. He didn't want to get involved in the battle between the sacred nation and others. Moreover, Yi Qinghan had a powerful background and represented the sky-reaching church. If the sacred nation's sacred lord didn't want to attack Yi Qinghan and took it out on them, wouldn't the Sword Dao Great Eternal Sacred Ground be destroyed? "Sai, take care of it yourself." The Great Eternal Sword Dao Great Eternal Saint sighed. Chess Saint bowed and left. In the blink of an eye, he appeared outside of the heaven-suppressing city. In the heaven-suppressing city, the crazed sect was peaceful and harmonious. The experts were all hiding in the back mountains and cultivating their saint techniques. The resources were endless. Occasionally, the Green Lotus Sword Immortal would appear and give them pointers. Even a great saint was attracted by the elites of the crazed sect. These elites were indeed talented and worth nurturing. With abundant resources and powerful saint techniques, experts were constantly breaking through to the middle level. Once they entered the middle level, they would become the kings of the same level. There were also a few ninth-rate legendary experts. Gu Qingyu, Jiang Jingtian, Li Feng, Yan Ao, Huang Peng, Xia Ziluo, Di Longtian, these top-notch existences were definitely in the legendary level. As for the rest, even if they were not in the legendary level, they were not far from it. As for Jian Qinxue, she had received the quintessence of the Green Lotus Sword Immortal. Her cultivation had probably surpassed Fan Yin's. It was just that she could not use the Green Lotus Sword Song now. Once she unleashed it, her name would definitely spread far and wide. Now, in the crazed sect, only Lin Wuqian and Jian Qinxue were in the upper level. It was not that the others could not break through, but they were all restraining themselves. They wanted to increase their combat power again. If they rushed into the upper level, they would be stuck in the upper level for the rest of their lives. Hua! A Saint Chi spread out and shrouded the entire crazed sect, startling everyone. Chess Saint was even more shocked. He did not expect that his Saint Divine Sense could not see through the courtyard on the south side of the crazed sect. The Saint Chi was faintly discernible, but it was like a chasm that was difficult to cross. He really has a great saint behind him. This brat did not lie to me. Chess Saint was shocked. At this moment, he was almost certain that Yi Qinghan was involved in an earth-shattering war. It had not erupted yet, but once it did, the world would collapse and the eternal world would fall apart. Chess Saint wanted to see who was hiding in the courtyard. With a flash of his figure, he appeared outside the courtyard. However, he did not dare act rashly. Instead, he said respectfully, Junior Chess Supremacy Saint is here to seek an audience with Senior. After a long time, no one spoke. The experts of the crazed sect had already arrived outside the courtyard. Yan Ao recognized Chess Saint's identity and stopped everyone's violent chi. At this moment, the door opened faintly. A peerless beauty walked out. She was like a fairy walking out of ice and snow. Her temperament was otherworldly. It was Jian Qinxue. Jian Qinxue bowed and said, I am Yi Qinghan's wife, Jian Qinxue. I am also a disciple of the great saint in the courtyard. Greetings, Chess Saint. My husband has mentioned several times that you are the real eternal saint. Today, I see that it is true. Chess Saint was stunned, but he immediately returned the greeting. So you are little Ye's wife. There is no need to stand on ceremony. I wonder if the senior inside can accept my audience. Jian Qinxue shook her head. Her face was like a peach blossom. She was clearly rejecting him, but it was hard to get angry. Senior, my master has been in seclusion recently and does not see outsiders. I hope you can forgive him, Jian Qinxue said in a crisp voice. Chapter 21:12. In the Xiahou ancient capital, in Yi Qinghan's courtyard. Lin Wuqian looked worried. He looked at Yi Qinghan and asked, Master, aren't you afraid that the chess saint will be exposed if he goes to the crazy mansion? Yi Qinghan shook his head slightly and replied, If the chess saint is the chess saint I know, he will not enter the courtyard. But what if he is curious and barges into the courtyard? Everything will be over. Lin Wuqian was still worried. After all, this matter was too serious. Once exposed, not only would the Green Lotus Sword Immortal be in danger, but the crazy sect would also be destroyed. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, I believe in the chess saint. Even if he did something wrong and barged into the courtyard, he will definitely die. She will not let him come out alive. In the crazy mansion, outside the courtyard, Jian Qinxue was very calm, but deep down, she was very nervous. She was afraid that the chess saint would barge into the courtyard. The chess saint's black hair fluttered. His eyes were like torches. He stood outside the door for a long time and did not leave. He seemed to be thinking. There are only 3 great sages in the eternal world. It can't be the sacred master, let alone the one from the Oshi sacred ground. The heavenly grandmaster great sage would not be so bored as to come to my sword way holy land to cultivate a small sect. This means that the great sage of the crazy mansion is not from the eternal world, but one of the 10 great secret realms back then. The chess saint muttered to himself as his eyes flashed. There were a total of 3 great sages that were suppressed back then. The Bailey Longxian, the Green Lotus Sword Immortal, and the Star Emperor Lord of the Star Great Net World. Could the great sage of the crazy mansion be one of the 3? The chess saint looked up at Jian Qinxue. With Yi Qinghan's character, he would never give such a beauty to a man alone. Therefore, a figure appeared in his sea of consciousness involuntarily. Is it the Green Lotus Sword Immortal? She was the most powerful sword immortal back then. She entered the sword way and was many times more terrifying than senior brother. She once killed an eternal saint. Her understanding of the great Tao had already surpassed other great sages. The chess saint's wisdom was heaven-defying. Although he was ordinary and reserved, he was definitely a person of great wisdom. With his wisdom, he could guess the identity of the expert in the courtyard, but he didn't dare to be certain. No matter which great sage lived alone in the courtyard, the chess saint did not dare to barge in, nor did he want to. This was Yi Qinghan's foundation. Once exposed, Yi Qinghan would be in danger. Sigh, I've received your favor. I'll just pretend that I didn't see anything today. The chess saint sighed and turned to walk towards the hall of the crazy manor. Gu Qingyu and the others followed the chess saint, and their solemn expressions finally relaxed. Who's in charge of the crazy sect now? The chess saint looked at Yen Ao and asked faintly. Yen Ao quickly bowed and said, Chess sage, right now, this junior and Gu Qingyu are in charge of the wild sect. If there's anything, we'll follow your orders. Chess saint shook his head and said indifferently, it's nothing. A few days ago, an eternal saint was born in the Xiaohou ancient capital of the Xiaohou sacred land. He asked me to bring all of you to participate in the heaven worship ceremony and receive the blessings of heaven. Get ready. I'll take you there. Gu Qingyu and Jian Qinxue heaved a sigh of relief. They were really afraid that the chess saint had come for the courtyard alone. Thank you, saint. You can take the rest of the crazy sect with you. I'll stay behind to guard the crazy manor. Jian Qinxue bowed and said. Emperor Feng and Zhou Shuguang both chose to follow. Such an opportunity was rare. Naturally, they were unwilling to let go of the chance to participate. Soon, Gu Qingyu gathered all the masters at the back of the mountain. There were more than 40 masters of the crazy sect. The lowest cultivation level was at the lower level, and there were about 20 of them at the middle level. Each of them was at the same level as the supreme. When the chess saint saw the foundation of the crazy sect, his eyes almost popped out. You're all from the crazy sect. Doesn't the crazy sect have defective goods? The chess saint asked in surprise. Yen Ao smiled faintly. The crazy sect had been developing for so many years. Only Emperor Feng and Zhou Shuguang joined later. No one else was able to join. Back then, the crazy sect only had about 40 people. More than half of them were killed or injured. It was only because some of the younger generation added in that there were more than 40 people left. Senior, our crazy sect has yet to be officially established. Thus, we don't have any other disciples. These are all trustworthy people. We have gone through life and death situations to get here. Yen Ao said confidently. The chess saint counted carefully. There were only 45 people. He then said, these are all the people from the crazy sect. Yen Ao answered honestly, there are still 2 who have yet to officially return. That's all. Emperor Yi and Bai Shaoxing. Their identities were already clear. They just had yet to return. The chess saint did not want to stay any longer. He waved his hand and sent everyone into the Qian Kun space. With a twist of the stars, he broke through the void and left the heaven-suppressing city's territory. Fortunately, the chess saint did not observe the heaven-suppressing city carefully. Otherwise, he would have definitely discovered the eternal underground palace. His attention was all attracted by the green lotus sword immortal. In the Xiaohou sacred ground, in the Xiaohou ancient capital. 8 eternal saints had already arrived. They all had a good relationship with sovereign Xiaohou. Thus, they all came to congratulate him in advance. Xiaohou he was currently comprehending the saint technique. After a year, the saint technique covered the entire Xiaohou ancient capital. Every living being benefited from it. Even if he only comprehended a tiny bit of the technique, his attack power would be far beyond the upper-level experts. Everyone was looking at the Tao light in the sky in a daze. Hua! 10 colored lights intertwined and formed a huge barrier that covered the entire ancient capital. Each light was a secret technique. These were just the outer layer of the secret techniques. They were extremely difficult and weak. However, the secret techniques around Xiaohou he were easy to understand. They were extremely powerful and could destroy the heaven and earth with a wave of his hand. Xiaohou he stopped cultivating and slowly got up. She walked with light steps. Everywhere she passed, all living beings bowed down and knelt down to pray for blessings. After Xiaohou he left, they all looked at his back expectantly. They were incomparably excited, hoping that the eternal saint would give them some pointers that would benefit them for the rest of their lives. However, a saint's time was extremely precious. He wouldn't spend it on them alone. A moment later, Xiaohou he arrived at the side courtyard where Yi Qinghan, Yar Sheng, and Lin Wutian were. He pushed the door open and entered. Yi Qinghan hurriedly stood up and bowed. Saint He, what brings you to my side courtyard today? Come to my side courtyard to comprehend the saint techniques. It's your destiny to learn as much as you can, Xiaohou he said coolly. Yi Qinghan's pupils shrank and he clenched his fists involuntarily. Saints usually gave this kind of opportunity to those closest to them. In fact, they didn't even give it to those closest to them. Instead, they gave themselves a quiet space to comprehend their own path as a saint. Who would have thought that Xiaohou he would allow him to comprehend the saint techniques around him at such a critical juncture? Before Yi Qinghan could say anything, Xiaohou he floated away. How could Yi Qinghan let go of this opportunity? He leaped up and chased after him. At this time, the saint techniques emitted by the eternal saint were the easiest to comprehend. Every saint technique and divine ability had been personally developed by the saint. They were clear and simple. With Yi Qinghan's talent, it couldn't be easier to learn them. Xiaohou he brought Yi Qinghan into the former residence of the saint. This attracted the envy and jealousy of the world. The Xiaohou clan was even more shocked and speechless. They were very unwilling to accept this. Their ancestor had become a saint, but the benefits were not the son of a saint, but an outsider. How could this be? What did this Yi Qinghan do to deserve this? I can't accept this. The young kings of the Xiaohou clan wailed unwillingly, but how could they change the mind of a saint? Chapter 21:13. 15 years passed in the blink of an eye. Yi Qinghan became the only one who stayed by Xiaohou he's side to comprehend divine powers and saint techniques. He was the talk of the world. During these 15 years, countless experts had gathered in Xiaohou ancient capital. All the saints had basically arrived. The chess saint had already moved in with 40 experts from the insane sect. They were lucky this time as they did not sleep in a cave. The Xiaohou clan had arranged a place for the insane sect that was comparable to a sacred ground. Only a few experts from the powerful sects and clans had the opportunity to stay there. At the end of the 15th year, a saint from the Oshi sacred ground, which was the furthest from here, also came. However, his purpose was to receive the Yar saint and the immortal pill. Xiahou Supreme had already arranged the audience ceremony and had even left a place for the insane sect. Such treatment had already surpassed that of the powerful sections. Although the powerful sects and clans were dissatisfied, they could only endure it. In the place where Xiahou he was in seclusion, sacred light soared into the sky as countless divine powers gathered. Yi Qinghan formed seals with his 10 fingers and comprehended divine powers one after another. In these 15 years, he had comprehended a few divine powers every day. They were all saint techniques. Although the power he could unleash was not as strong as Xiahou He's, it was definitely much stronger than an ordinary upper level. Whoosh! Xiahou he had comprehended all the saint techniques bestowed by the heavens and the ancient city. His aura was restrained as a saint returned to his position. His saint aura was vast and mighty. He slowly stood up with an imposing aura. Yi Qinghan woke up from his seclusion. His aura became ordinary instead. He was no longer as aggressive and domineering as before. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan opened his eyes and smiled. He felt that the bottleneck of the upper level was no longer protected by the prison heavenly Taoist scripture. He could break it at any time and step into the upper level. However, he was not in a hurry. He was waiting for the bottleneck to break by itself. He was truly invincible among those of the same level. Below the upper level, even Xia Jiulong could not shake his supreme position. Xiahou he withdrew his saint aura and stared at Yi Qinghan, his deep voice rumbling, "Congratulations. As long as you are not killed by a saint, your saint realm is just around the corner." Yi Qinghan smiled faintly and bowed. You should be the one who has successfully stepped into the saint realm. Once you become a saint, you are 3 times stronger than those old eternal saints. It is rare to find such a person. At least, no one has ever done it before. Xiahou he was still weak. Of a saint realm. Of saints were equivalent to 2 saints. But he was still weak compared to a supreme saint. Let's go. There's no need to say anything more. It's better to keep a low profile in the present. Xiahou he knew the principle of living. If a supreme saint was angered, no matter how powerful an eternal saint was, he would be suppressed. Just like the one suppressed by the Hell Pagoda. Back then, he was like the sun. Now, he was still pitiful. He could not even see the sun, the moon, or the stars. He could not see the dawn or the future. Yi Qinghan also thought of that existence. Although he did not know who it was, he knew that it was related to him by blood and had saved his life. Yi Qinghan followed Xiahou he slowly on the street. He asked curiously, "Saint He, who is the sinner suppressed in the Hell Pagoda? What crime did he commit?" Xiahou he was slightly startled. Then, he shook his head and said, "He has not cultivated to the supreme saint realm. You'd better not worry about it." Xiahou he was afraid of the sacred lord and the power of the sacred nation. Therefore, he did not want to say more. Yi Qinghan did not ask any more questions. He would definitely enter the Hell Pagoda again. The two slowly walked into the imperial city of the ancient capital. The imperial city was crowded with experts. Yi Qinghan found that the chess saint was talking with some eternal experts. He walked over. The chess saint was full of smiles. When he saw Yi Qinghan walking over, he stopped talking to the eternal supreme. Instead, he turned his head and said, "Little Yi Qinghan, the crazy sect is located in the west of the imperial city. It is arranged together with the people of the Oshi sacred ground. Go and take a look." Yi Qinghan bowed and left under the gaze of the saints. In the west of the imperial city, where the crazy sect was stationed, 40 experts were racing against time. Several courtyards were filled with the aura of mysterious laws and divine abilities. As soon as Yi Qinghan entered the area, he immediately woke everyone up. He glanced around and found that Lin Shui was among them. He could not help but slap his head in regret. Damn, I forgot to let her stay, Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly. Lin Shui still had the star chessboard. If she was caught by the people of the sacred nation, they would definitely capture her at all costs. At this time, Lin Shui was not aware of the danger. Instead, she was very excited and strolled around. Yi Qinghan rubbed his forehead and then reached out to touch Lin Shui's head. He said in a deep voice, "You should not have come. But since you are here, don't run around and don't participate in the heaven worship ceremony." "Why?" Lin Shui raised her head and asked innocently with her big round eyes. Yi Qinghan lowered his voice and said, "Because your enemies are here. We have no foundation. Even if we have a few eternal saints who are on good terms with us, they will not go against the entire sacred nation for us." At the mention of her enemies, Lin Shui immediately quieted down. Her face was pale, and she lowered her head without saying a word. Yi Qinghan did not want to provoke her. He looked up at the crowd and said in a deep voice, "The heaven worship ceremony is very important. When the time comes, respect the saints and respect the heavens. You will get something unexpected. Stop cultivating for a few days and adjust your state to the best state to prepare for the heaven worship ceremony." Okay. It was Di Longtian and the others' first time participating in the heaven worship ceremony, so they were looking forward to it. As for Gu Qingyu, Jiang Jingtian, and Yan Ao, it was their second time participating, so they were very calm. Their first fortuitous encounter was not too good, so they were not looking forward to it this time. In the central region of the Xiahou ancient capital, 3 inns were booked by the sacred nation. Many experts came from the sacred nation, including Xia Jiulong. However, he was no longer in the middle realm but the upper realm. The immortal sealing mark on his forehead was faintly discernible, and his powerful aura could not be restrained. He was many times stronger than ordinary upper realm cultivators. Xian Xiu quickly walked into the inn. On the top floor, Xia Jiulong stood by the window and looked at the majestic ancient capital. Half of the mountains and rivers were in his sight. At this moment, his aura was even more otherworldly. Bang bang bang. A series of knocks came from the door. "Come in." Xia Jiulong did not even turn his head as he stared into the distance. He was even more confident now. Xian Xiu pushed the door and entered. He bowed and said, "Your Highness, we found Yi Qinghan's tracks. He has entered the insane sex area and his cultivation has increased a lot. He is between the upper realm and the middle realm. He can break through to the upper realm at any time. What else is there?" Xia Jiulong asked faintly. Xian Xiu was silent for a moment and said hesitantly, "This subordinate found that the blessed Buddha temple seems to be paying special attention to the insane sex area, especially the thousand-hand Buddha. He is watching almost all the time. However, it seems that he does not have good intentions. Call the thousand-hand Buddha to see this emperor." Xia Jiulong waved his hand. Chapter 21:14. Summon the thousand-hand Buddha to see this emperor. Xia Jiulong's aura was like that of an emperor, seizing the will of heaven and earth with a wave of his hand. Gong Wuxian was a true disciple of blessed Buddha temple with a lofty status. In his eyes, the thousand-hand Buddha was just a dog. Xian Xiu looked at Xia Jiulong's fluttering dragon robe, and his heart was filled with respect. Back then, perhaps it was because of Xia Jiulong's status, but now, he revered his strength and feared his future. "Yes, Your Highness." The mystic bowed and left. Xia Jiulong still did not turn his head. His eyes pierced through the void and looked directly at the camp of the wild clan of the west. Golden dragon flames flickered in his eyes. His slender fingers pressed against the edge of the window, and the corners of his mouth lifted slightly. "Yi Qinghan, if I want to kill someone, no one will be able to escape. If I want something, no one can stop me. Your immortal pills will all become my dowry. As for the opportunities you obtain, they will all belong to me. Xia Jiulong's voice was filled with resentment and hatred. It was hoarse and deep, causing others to shudder. Outside the encampment of the Guangzong, Gong Wuxing stared at the entrance of the courtyard where the Guangzong was stationed, fearing that he would miss something interesting. Yi Qinghan, the blessed Buddha temple will take your immortal pill. Otherwise, how can the blessed Buddha temple establish itself in the world and the other sacred grounds have two eternal saints? Crack crack crack. The thousand-hand Buddha's eyes flashed with a cold light. Previously, they wanted the immortal pill because of benefits. But now, they had no choice but to seize the immortal pill and create a saint. Pa! Just as the thousand-hand Buddha was muttering to himself, a large hand suddenly patted his shoulder, scaring him so much that his face turned pale. He jumped 3 feet into the air and turned around to see Xian Xiu. He immediately shouted angrily, "You lunatic, are you courting death?" Xian Xiu's eyes glinted coldly. He clenched his fists and then released them. He said in a hoarse voice, "His Highness the Crown Prince is looking for you. It's up to you whether you want to see him or not." Gulp. Although the thousand-hand Buddha didn't care about mystic cultivators, he couldn't help but care about Xia Jiulong. Xia Jiulong's words could determine whether or not his true disciple could be saved. "Why is he looking for me?" the thousand-hand Buddha asked warily. "You'll know when you get there." Xian Xiu said coldly and turned to leave. The thousand-hand Buddha hesitated for a moment before following him. The thousand-hand Buddha left the surveillance spot. As soon as his figure moved, Yi Qinghan, who was standing on the highest floor of the insane sect's encampment, caught his trail. His divine sense was of the upper plane, and it was stronger than an ordinary upper plane's. It was easy for him to find the spy. The thousand-hand Buddha has been spying on Guangzong. What is he trying to do? Could it be that the people from Black Wind Stockade are from Blessed Buddha Temple? Yi Qinghan had no choice but to be cautious and think of the worst-case scenario. Those people are clearly using Heavenly Demon Cult's mutated cultivation method. At the very least, the Heavenly Demon Bao belongs to Heavenly Demon Cult. Blessed Buddha Temple and Heavenly Demon Cult should be enemies, so why would Blessed Buddha Temple know Heavenly Demon Cult's cultivation method? Shouldn't the Sky Demon Bao be the Sky Demon's natal weapon? Yi Qinghan had many questions that he couldn't find an explanation for. He stared at the back of the thousand-hand Buddha for a long time, unable to come back to his senses. But if they are not from Blessed Buddha Temple, then who are they? It was impossible for an eternal saint to lose his weapon. Where was Heavenly Devil Cult Master? He couldn't have given his weapon to someone before he went missing, right? The more Yi Qinghan thought about it, the more puzzles he had. Phew, Yi Qinghan let out a shaky breath, unwilling to think any further. He could only find out if he found Heavenly Devil Cult Master. However, there was one thing he was sure of, and that was that these people weren't from Heavenly Demon Cult. Otherwise, Heavenly Demon Cult Master would have summoned Fozhen Demon Venerable. Whoosh, just as Yi Qinghan was about to turn and leave, a few figures quietly entered the depths of the ancient capital from the entrance of Guangzong's encampment. The aura on their bodies was very strange, and they didn't even seem human. Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows and stretched his head to look at the strange strong practitioners. There were no waves of sacred power on their bodies, and when they moved, there were no afterimages. It was as though they were teleporting. One moment, they were in the same spot, and the next, they were more than 10 meters away. However, they were so casual that if one didn't look closely, one wouldn't have noticed them. What are they? They don't seem to have any energy waves. Yi Qinghan's eyes widened in shock. Yi Qinghan immediately sent a message to Sejia, who appeared in the attic in a flash. He stared in the direction Yi Qinghan was pointing at, and his eyes flashed. He said in shock, "They are from the Ghost God clan. They haven't appeared for many years." These people are born as ghosts and gods, and they are saints when they cultivate to the Supreme Being realm. They once cultivated to the Supreme Being realm, but they mysteriously went missing and haven't appeared since. Their people are very strong, and they are definitely stronger than humans of the same level. There are many legendary people like Gong Wuxian who can roam the Jianghu. Yi Qinghan was shocked. He thought that his Quanzong was the cream of the crop, but he didn't expect the Ghost God clan to be even better. It's best not to provoke them. The appearance of their people is very likely because of the appearance of the Ghost God clan saint. The eternal saint of the Ghost God clan might have broken through the shackles and entered the Supreme Sage realm. Once he enters the Supreme Sage realm, his strength will be comparable to sect leader Tong Tian and my ancestor, Sagea, reminded him. Yi Qinghan didn't panic about the appearance of the Ghost God clan. Instead, he felt relaxed. Such a God-given race would definitely be stronger than Xia Jiulong in their hearts. What good could happen when two powerful races collided? Yi Qinghan smiled and said indifferently, "It's good to know who they are. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Why would I provoke my friends?" Sagea smiled bitterly and shook his head. "You are wrong. Xia Jiulong's relationship with the Ghost God clan is not bad. Their relationship with the Oshi sacred land is very bad." Yi Qinghan was a little surprised. He didn't expect his speculation to be wrong. Yi Qinghan nodded silently and touched his nose. He looked at the departing figures of the Ghost God clan and fell into deep thought. The strength of the 6 people who appeared was not inferior to Jiang Jingtian, Gu Qingyu, or Li Feng. If they joined forces with Xia Jiulong, the eccentric sect would be defeated. Sigh, Yi Qinghan sighed and looked at the passage of time. The bell outside roared. He knew that the heaven worship ceremony was about to begin. He said in a low voice, "You should prepare for the heaven worship ceremony first. Call Lin Shui up. I won't be participating in this ceremony." "Yes." Sagea respectfully retreated. Yi Qinghan stood on a tall building, overlooking all living beings and comprehending them. He hoped to break through to the Great Perfection realm as soon as possible and advance to the upper realm, becoming a true supreme invincible. Woo woo woo. The sound of the horn was mighty and the sky roared. The great Tao gathered and a 5-colored light appeared in the sky. Heaven and earth visions appeared and dragons and phoenixes soared. The heaven worship ceremony began. All the masters walked out of the Xiahou ancient capital. There was a large plain there, enough for the world to see. The masters of the eccentric sect and the people of the Oshi sacred land gathered and rushed out of the gate. Only Lin Shui looked at them expectantly. She had no choice but to walk up the tall building and stand beside Yi Qinghan. Chapter 21:15. The high platform outside the city gate had been built. Saints had gathered, giving Xia Hoha enough face. This time, the glory world was even bigger than the chess saint. Other than the Nightwalker, all the young experts had arrived. Yi Qinghan appeared on the highest building beside the city wall with Lin Shui. He looked down at the common people from a first-person perspective. It was like a god ruling over all living beings. Everything in the world was in his sight and could be controlled with a wave of his hand. This was the first time Yi Qinghan had experienced something like this. He could even control a saint. Whoosh! Experts kept appearing. The specter experts did not follow Xia Jiulong. Instead, they sat alone. Xia Jiulong's aura was even stronger. It was so strong that the younger generation could not compete with him. The thousand-hand Buddha's face was red at this moment. He seemed to be very excited. He must have reached a consensus with Xia Jiulong. Fanning also came. However, she came as a representative of the Sky-Reaching School's sect master. She was protected by the 3 deans. Her eyes were disdainful. Her appearance attracted the attention of all the young people in the world. Even a saint did not receive such treatment. The two young men in linen clothes who had sat beside the chess saint walked over with the breeze. Their auras were extraordinary. They still came to the chess saint's side. They kept a low profile, unlike the other legendary experts whose auras were so domineering. The Son of War had arrived. Gong Wusheng, Wu Zong, Emperor Yi, and by Xiaoxing's reincarnated golden bodies, Yi Qinghan looked down at everyone from the highest point. He did not greet anyone he knew. He put himself in the position of the ruler and observed everyone's expression, including the saints. No matter how casual the saints were, they still noticed Yi Qinghan, especially the Cloud Dragon Saint. His eyes flashed as he turned to look at the top of the tall building where Yi Qinghan was. Their eyes met. Yi Qinghan did not show any fear. After a spark, their eyes separated. At this moment, a figure distorted the void and appeared in front of everyone. His aura was exactly the same as the specter experts, but his aura was stronger. He was much stronger than the 6 specters from before. Furthermore, he was at the upper level. "Greetings, Divine Son," the 6 specters said respectfully as they knelt on one knee. The deity nodded and said, "Get up." Whoosh! The deity of the Spectre clan. Many experts from the Holy Lands could not help but shout. At this time, even the eternal saints sat up straight with a certain degree of respect in their eyes. Xia Jiolong looked at the Divine Son and nodded slightly. The deity prince of the Guotian clan turned around to greet them. His face was expressionless. Then, he looked at the eternal saints and bowed with cupped fists. "Greetings, deity prince of the Guotian clan. Congratulations to Saint He for entering the eternal realm." Ha ha ha, the saints laughed and waved their hands to help Guo Shensi up. Xiaoho he rose to his feet and returned the greeting. "It's an honor for the Xiaoho sacred land to grace us with your presence, the divine child of the specter gods." Guo Shensi had a smile on his face. He couldn't be considered handsome, but that extraordinary temperament of his was enough to make all the women in the world go crazy. A trace of his devilish charm could make all the men's hearts beat faster. "Actually, I'm not here just to congratulate Sage He on reaching the eternal realm. I'm here to deliver the will of the God Ancestor. My God Ancestor has broken the legend of my people and become a great sage. He's going to reappear soon, and I hope that everyone will be there to support him." Ghost Shensi clasped his hands in greeting. A great sage. Currently, there were only 3 great sages in the world. Including Green Lotus Sword Immortal, who was missing half of his origin, there were only 4. Now that there was another great sage, who wouldn't be shocked? All of the saints were shocked by Guo Shensi's news. Yi Qinghan, who was standing on top of a tall building, trembled slightly. He was afraid of a great sage. At this level, he couldn't even muster the will to resist. The world fell into silence. Even the sound of breathing could be heard. Fan Yin frowned at Guo Shensi, annoyance in her eyes. This Guo Shensi cultivated a strange saint technique that was impossible to defend against. He was even more difficult to deal with than Xia Jiolong. She would rather fight Xia Jiolong than Guo Shensi. Furthermore, Guo Shensi had long been interested in her. He had come to propose marriage several times, but was rejected by the heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage. Now that there was another great sage in the Guotian clan, the heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage couldn't reject him directly. Guo Shensi seemed to have sensed the annoyance in Fan Yin's eyes, and a devilish smile appeared on his face. Looking at Fan Yin's beautiful face, he made no attempt to hide his lust. That determined look in his eyes made Fan Yin very uncomfortable. "Fan Yin, after so many years, you still haven't improved. You really disappoint me." Guo Shensi ignored the eternal saints and smiled evilly. "As long as you agree, you and I can have 2 saints, or even 2 great sages, together. Think about it again. What do you think? Get lost. I'd rather be alone for the rest of my life than consider you." Fan Yin scolded coldly. Guo Shensi smiled evilly and said confidently, "You don't have to make the decision. The heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage should give face to the godly ancestor this time. The rest is up to me. If you win, I'll set you free. If you lose, I'll decide your fate." Fan Yin clenched her fists and glared at Guo Shensi. She said coldly, "Whether I win or lose, only I can decide my fate. At worst, I'll die." In the face of two legendary masters, the saints couldn't intervene. Xiahou he was about to mediate when Lin Wuqian, who was sitting cross-legged in front of the Kuang sect, pulled out the hilt of his sword. The sword whistled and he looked up at Yi Qinghan, who was on the top of a tall building in the city. Yi Qinghan shook his head slightly, indicating that he shouldn't make a move. Lin Wuqian's main battle force was the Green Lotus Sword Song. If he used the Green Lotus Sword Song, Guo Shensi might lose. But if he didn't, Lin Wuqian would never be able to defeat Guo Shensi. Boom! Lin Wuqian had to withdraw his sword. Guo Shensi glanced coldly at Lin Wuqian, a disdainful smile on his face. "I want to marry Fan Yin. Who in the world opposes it? Who agrees?" Guo Shensi's deep voice filled the air. Fan Yin was beautiful, indescribably beautiful. All the handsome men in the world adored her. But who would dare to steal her from Guo Shensi? The world opposes it. But no one dared to speak up. Lin Wuqian held the hilt of his sword tightly, watching the situation unfold. Fan Yin suppressed her anger and said in a low voice, "Even if the world agrees, I alone am enough to oppose it." Xiahou Supreme was dissatisfied. This Guo Shensi was too ungrateful. How dare he cause trouble during the audience ceremony? He didn't even put the Xiahou sacred ground in his eyes. But at this moment, Xia Jiulong clapped his hands and laughed, "You can't say it like that. Junior sister Fan Yin, a hero is matched with a beauty, and a divine sword is given to a hero. Junior sister Fan Yin is as beautiful as a flower, capable of causing the downfall of cities and countries. Guo Shensi is a peerless genius, so junior sister Fan Yin mustn't be willful. I support Guo Shensi." Xiahou Supreme didn't dare to act recklessly. No one would benefit from offending the two sacred grounds. I'll say it again. If you win against me, or if anyone in the younger generation wins against me, I'll set you free. Otherwise, you're going to get married. Guo Shensi's willpower soared. He was even more arrogant than Xia Jiulong. Chapter 21:16. The ghost god-child was too arrogant. He was so arrogant that many young legendary-level experts were displeased. The son of war clenched his scimitar and tapped the hilt with his fingertips, but he was still enduring. He would attack when he couldn't. Many of Fan Yin's followers couldn't hold themselves back either. If they weren't afraid of the great saint behind Guo Shensi, they would have attacked long ago. The one he couldn't tolerate the least was Xiahou Yuan, a true disciple of the Xiahou house. What Ghost Shensi had done was a slap to the Xiahou sacred land's face. What would happen to Xiahou He's reputation after this? What would happen to the Xiahou family's reputation? Crack! Xiahou Yuan clenched his fist and said coldly, "Guo Shensi, are you trying to use your great saint backing you to make a scene in the saints' meeting ceremony? Or are you trying to court Fan Yin with your own strength?" Guo Shensi smiled evilly and said confidently, "Why would I blaspheme the saints' meeting ceremony? I am sincerely pursuing Fairy Fan Yin. In the past few years, I have been rejected several times to propose marriage. Everyone should know that this time, the heroes of the world bear witness to my sincerity towards Fairy Fan Yin. This time, I guarantee that if I lose, I will never harass Fairy Fan Yin again, nor will I use my connections to take revenge." Guo Shensi had the right to be arrogant. He was an upper-level legendary expert. After so many years, other than Xia Jiulong, the Dark Walker, and the two linen-clothed youths, no one could compete with him. No one would dare to attack Guo Shensi unless they were in the upper realm. Xia Jiulong originally wanted to provoke Yi Qinghan into attacking Gue Shensi so that both sides would be injured. Then, he would be able to reap the benefits, so he naturally wouldn't stop Gue Shensi. Nowadays, most of the legendary experts were in the middle level, including Fan Yin. Lin Wuqian wanted to teach Gue Shensi a lesson, but when he saw Yi Qinghan holding his right arm with his left hand, he gently shook his head, not allowing Lin Wuqian to do anything. Lin Wuqian's strongest move was the Green Lotus Sword Song. If he used it, Xia Jiulong might not be able to survive. However, once he used it, his identity would be exposed. Yi Qinghan didn't want to take the risk. He only hoped that the Dark Walker or the two linen-clothed youths would stop Gue Shensi. Lin Wuqian could hold himself back, but Xiahou Yuan couldn't. He drew his sword and pierced through the void, charging towards Gue Shensi. The power of the sword was like a rainbow, tearing through the shackles. A legendary expert was indeed a legendary expert. The moment he made a move, he had the aura of an upper level. The sword chi swayed and pierced Ghost Shensi's throat with an unstoppable force. Whoosh! The divine sword pierced through Gue Shensi's throat, and his body slowly dissipated. There was not even a drop of blood. It was obvious that this was only his afterimage, and Gue Shensi had long since left. Boom! Gue Shensi appeared behind Xiahou Yuan and slammed his palm against his back. Boundless Gue Shensi's power penetrated Xiahou Yuan's back and sent him flying. Poof! Xiahou Yuan coughed up blood and flew several hundred meters away. Just one strike. The difference between their cultivation levels was too great. Xiahou Yuan could not be said to be weak by one major cultivation level. It could only be said that the difference of one major cultivation level was like the difference between heaven and earth. Gue Shensi was as calm as ever, as if he was still standing in the same spot. Hiss! Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. The ghost god's strength was too strong. He was so strong that other legendary experts could not contend against him. Xiahou Jizun and Xiahou He's expression turned even uglier. If no one could defeat Gue Shensi today, the Xiahou sacred ground would lose face. The chess saint, who was sitting far away, frowned. He looked at the two young men beside him, and then at Gue Shensi. He could not help but sigh. It would be easy for the two young men to kill Gue Shensi if they worked together. However, if they were to fight alone, they would lose without a doubt. You've gone too far. Boom! The son of war roared. He pulled out his blade and soared into the sky. His battle intent was majestic, like a broken dam, rushing in all directions. Battle symbol art. Whoosh! The blade light tore through the shackles. It was as fast as lightning, and afterimages filled the sky. It was impossible to distinguish between the real body and the afterimages. Shoo! Shoo! Gue Shensi was even faster. Countless afterimages faced off against the afterimages of the Son of War. In an instant, all the afterimages were scattered, and the real body returned. His sharp claws tore through the void and grabbed the Son of War's scimitar. Boom! The two of them clashed. Shockwaves blasted out in all directions, and the earth shook. If it were not for the pressure of a saint, the mountains and rivers would have been lifted. The Son of War was like a god of war. His strength was overwhelming, but he could not move an inch. Instead, Gue Shensi used his divine power and sent him flying with a palm. Not bad. Your speed and strength are enough. It's just that your cultivation level is a little low. Your overall strength is also weak. So what if you've reached the upper level? Gue Shensi stood there with his hands behind his back. He did not move an inch. Since the Son of War had lost, it was even more impossible for the others to fight. Fan Yin looked around and did not see Yi Qinghan. She clenched her fist, and the string appeared in her hand. She took a deep breath and said calmly, I'll do it myself. Lin Wuqian could see that Fan Yin could not win against Gue Shensi even if she used all her strength. He stood up with his sword and said firmly, "You're still a martial ant. How can I let you fight a piece of trash? I'm willing to fight for you so that you won't dirty your hands." Whoosh! Lin Wuqian's momentum swept the heaven and earth. Thousands of swords bowed to the emperor. The swords in the hands of countless people involuntarily soared into the sky, intertwining with each other. Gue Shensi frowned and looked at Lin Wuqian. His hand trembled, and a dark sword hilt appeared. He held the divine sword with his big hand, and a trace of killing intent appeared in his eyes. Lin Wuqian slowly walked forward, his footsteps following the rhythm of heaven and earth. The swords in the hands of countless upper-level cultivators trembled and whistled. They wanted to draw their swords and soar into the sky, but they were all suppressed by the upper-level cultivators. Sword chi was gathering, and sword chi filled the air. Lin Wuqian stared at Gue Shensi and said coldly, "Destroying the saint's audience ceremony should be a death sentence. Making fun of the saint of sky-reaching cult is also a death sentence." Gue Shensi raised an evil smile and asked disdainfully, "Is that so? But I want to kill you today, and no one can stop me." At this moment, Yi Qinghan could not wait any longer. Lin Wuqian could not do anything to Gue Shensi without using the Green Lotus Sword Song. He could not let Lin Wuqian expose his identity. "Stay here and don't go out." Yi Qinghan glanced at Lin Shui indifferently and stepped out of the pavilion. His steps were light, and he walked step by step out of the city. "Wuqian, step back. It's better to let Master fight this battle." The majestic voice was mighty, and it shook the ears of all the cultivators around. Xiahou He's face was filled with joy. He secretly transmitted a message, "Yi Qinghan, cripple him. Otherwise, I don't know where to put my Xiahou clan's face." Yi Qinghan's face was expressionless. He only nodded and stepped into the center of the battlefield. His aura was restrained, but everyone could see that he was a middle-level cultivator. "Who are you?" "I don't kill nameless people." Gue Shensi asked coldly. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan waved his hand to adjust the Yin-Yang Bagua Taoist robe. He smiled faintly and said, "I'm your father. Did you ask for my permission to marry my wife?" Chapter 21:17. "I'm your father," his words echoed in the air, causing countless young experts to cheer. Yi Qinghan's name had spread far and wide. No matter what he'd done in the past, he was the only one who'd followed Xia Hohe to gain enlightenment in the past 15 years. Without Xia Jiulong, perhaps Yi Qinghan was the only one who could defeat Gue Shensi. Ha ha ha, everyone roared with laughter. Even Xiahou He and Xiahou Supreme were smiling. Yi Qinghan didn't wait for Gue Shensi to explode in anger. He said coldly, "You trampled on the saint's audience ceremony and delayed the auspicious time of the heavens veneration ceremony. You disrespected your seniors and the heavens. Saint He is of high status and power, so she didn't bicker with you. However, I look down on people like you, so I'll teach you a lesson on behalf of the heavens and all the eternal saints." Crack! Crack! Gue Shensi was furious. He clenched his fists and roared hoarsely, "You think you're worthy? You'll know whether I'm worthy or not after we fight. If you want me to use my weapon today, consider it my loss." Yi Qinghan waved his hand and activated the eternal gauntlets. Golden light flowed around his body, merging with his fists. His entire being was one with the city, and his aura was one with the heavens and earth. Once an expert made a move, the truth would be revealed. Yi Qinghan didn't make a move out of jealousy. He knew that Gue Shensi wouldn't dare kidnap Fan Yin in public. He just didn't want Lin Wuqian to be exposed. Secondly, he wanted to save face for the Xiahou sacred land. Yi Qinghan raised his head and gave Gue Shensi a provocative look. "Make your move. If I make my move, you won't have the chance to. Gue Shensi laughed out loud. Ha ha ha, you're the most arrogant person I've ever met. A mere mid-realm cultivator dares to talk to me like that. Yi Qinghan shook his head and replied indifferently, no, no, no. There is someone in this world who is much more arrogant and savage than me. I don't dare to disrupt the sage's audience and heaven worship ceremony just because I have a great sage behind me. When Yi Qinghan said this, it made the other sages take a stand. At least Yi Qinghan respected the eternal sages. They also had great sages and sons of the demon god behind them. It was obvious who was superior. Gue Shensi glanced at the sages and saw the dissatisfaction on Sage Yunlong's face. Disrupting the sage's homecoming ceremony was a great disrespect. At this moment, Yi Qinghan had the advantage of time, place, and people. His pressure was growing stronger and stronger. Lightning surrounded his iron fist. Yi Qinghan's eyes were like lightning. His divine power flowed through his legs and he used his shadowless cloud. His upper realm divine sense controlled everything within 1,000 miles. His golden body was filled with the profoundness of the sage techniques. These were all the profoundness he had learned in the past 15 years. Yi Qinghan said no more. He pointed out the evidence of Gue Shensi's crimes. Even if they lost this battle, the great sage of the Ghost God clan would not have the face to seek revenge. Boom! Yi Qinghan stepped forward and pressured Gue Shensi. Wu. Gue Shensi's evil aura soared to the sky. His figure pulled time and space. The air was restless and the wind was strong. The eerie air was flowing as if they had entered hell. Hua! Gue Shensi's 5 claws were like vicious hidden weapons. They turned into streaks of lightning and filled the sky with afterimages. He attacked Yi Qinghan from all directions. His murderous intent was thick. Dark clouds rolled in the sky and lightning raged. Yi Qinghan closed his eyes and channeled his divine sense to the maximum to locate Gue Shensi. His ears were trembling and his eyelids were about to open a few times. Hua 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 hua. Yi Qinghan raised both of his hands and moved the heaven and earth. The starting gesture of the 10-word spell was like that of a saint. Fan Yin and Xia Jiulong were shocked. They did not expect Yi Qinghan to have such a deep understanding of Tao. This guy's progress is too fast. Fan Yin and Xia Jiulong could not accept it. It had only been a few years. Yi Qinghan was crushed by Fan Yin in the past. Now, he had surpassed them. Xia Jiulong could not accept it. How could a mere ant challenge his identity as the most powerful person in the world? Boom! While everyone was still in shock, Gue Shensi could not hold back anymore. His sharp claws grabbed the air and attacked Yi Qinghan from behind. Yi Qinghan seemed to be moving slowly, but in fact, he had already turned around. His right hand grabbed Gue Shensi's claws and his left hand grabbed Gue Shensi's arm. His body moved back slightly. Sticky word spell. Boom! Yi Qinghan grabbed Gue Shensi's sharp claws tightly. The eternal boxing glove ignored the sharpness and viciousness of Gue Shensi's claws. Yi Qinghan pulled and raised his hand, pinching Gue Shensi's wrist and pushing it forward. Crack! Gue Shensi was shocked. He quickly retreated. Otherwise, Yi Qinghan would break his arm. Boom! Yi Qinghan pulled Gue Shensi closer. He let go of his hand and lifted his leg. The speed of the air flow was enough to kill a mid-level master. Gue Shensi was shocked. He crossed his arms to protect his head and slammed into Yi Qinghan's long leg. Bang! Both sides collided. Shockwaves spread out in all directions. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! The powerful Gue Shensi was pushed back a few hundred meters. He could not stand firm and kept retreating. His feet crushed the stone floor. Whoosh! Holy light shone around them. Many saints released their holy power and protected the area 1,000 meters around the battlefield. Only the area within 1,000 meters was left for the two to fight. Crack crack crack. Guo Shensi rubbed his hand. He felt like his arm was about to be broken by Yi Qinghan's kick. He stared at Yi Qinghan gloomily. He knew that Yi Qinghan's body was unparalleled. He was already a paragon saint, and with his defense, he could not beat Yi Qinghan without using a weapon. Guo Shensi reached out and grabbed the black divine sword. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Guo Shensi's strength was far beyond the younger generation. The only ones who could match him were Yi Qinghan and Xia Jiulong. At most, the Nightwalker, the judge, and the two linen-clothed youths. There were no more than 10 people. Emperor Feng clenched his fists. Back then, he was also a top existence. However, after 30,000 years of suppression, his cultivation had regressed. If he wanted to catch up, he had to rely on this heaven-worshipping ceremony. He watched the two cast spells. His divine power surged. He wanted to rush up and test himself. Just as everyone was worried, Yi Qinghan smiled. He looked at the divine sword in his opponent's hand without any fear. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan formed seals with his palms. His body emitted the aura of a saint. He was like an old man who had stood in the world for countless years. Xia Hoha was pleased. Yi Qinghan did not disappoint him. After 15 years of enlightenment, his strength had increased many times. He was only in the middle level now. Once he reached the upper level, Xia Jiulong and Guo Shensi might not be his match even if they worked together. This Yi Qinghan already has the aura of a saint. It's just that his realm has not caught up. What a monster. I've lived for so many years, but I've never seen such a miracle. Xiahou Supreme sighed. He was a miniature version of Xiahou He. Many saints thought that Yi Qinghan was Xiahou He's disciple. They couldn't help but look at Xiahou He with envy. House Xiahou's reputation had been preserved. Yi Qinghan's intervention meant that Xiahou He's disciple had stepped in to suppress the troublemakers. The world couldn't say anything about it. They could only say that House Xiahou had many talents, which made them even more proud. Yi Qinghan used Xiahou He's saint technique. Thousands of miles of light shone, dispersing the dark clouds. His long hair danced. His Taoist robe was cold. His battle-intent sword. Guo Shensi's aura was suppressed. This was a battle between a god and a supreme. He was a god, but Yi Qinghan was a supreme. Chapter 21:18. At this moment, Yi Qinghan had suppressed his realm just like Xia Hoha. He had learned 70 to 80% of Xia Hoha's saint technique. Even Xia Jiulong was no match for him, let alone Guo Shensi. This situation was similar to how Yi Qinghan was no match for Xia Hoha when Xia Hoha suppressed his realm. Guo Shensi's heart was filled with fear, and his facial muscles were distorted by the strong wind. Roar. Guo Shensi didn't dare to let Yi Qinghan gather his strength. He unsheathed his divine sword, and a dark sword light tore through time and space, aiming for Yi Qinghan's throat. Roar! Yi Qinghan waved his hand and formed a tiger shape. His 5 fingers turned into a giant hand that covered the sky and slapped towards Guo Shensi. Boom! The palm carried the aura of Xiahou City. It was majestic and could not be defied. It was as if a real saint had attacked. Even the experts who were protected by saints felt that their bodies were about to be crushed by Yi Qinghan's palm. Their eyes were filled with fear as they involuntarily retreated. He wasn't a saint, but he was stronger than one. Whoosh! Boom. The 5-fingered palm shattered Guo Shensi's sword energy and directly crushed him. Crack crack crack. Guo Shensi was defeated by the majestic force. His legs were twisted and stuck to the ground. He gritted his teeth and resisted. However, a trail of flames appeared on the ground and a chasm appeared outside the Xiaohou city. Gue Shensi screamed as he saw Yi Qinghan's five-fingered palm imprint carrying the will of heaven and earth. Even after exhausting all his strength, he couldn't resist Yi Qinghan's palm. His body was pushed back continuously. In the blink of an eye, Yi Qinghan had flattened 1,000 meters away. Yi Qinghan's energy slammed into the barrier. His face was expressionless as he mobilized all the divine energy in his body and punched out again. This time, he turned into a meteor of fire and ruthlessly smashed towards Gue Shensi. The two attacks seemed simple, but they had exhausted all of Yi Qinghan's energy. Gue Shensi's hand was broken as he watched Yi Qinghan attack him again. This attack could definitely kill him. Nine Dragons Crown Prince, save me. The ghost Shensi's appearance this time had been invited by Xia Jiulong. He had purposely angered Yi Qinghan. Although he had angered Yi Qinghan, the gap between them had widened. Neither side had suffered heavy losses. Whoosh! Xia Jiulong's eyes flashed as he waved his hand. The Nine Dragons fan appeared in his hand. His figure spun, and the stars rotated 9 times as he appeared in front of Ghost Shensi. With a wave of his hand, the Nine Dragons fan slashed towards Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan and Xia Jiulong were sent flying by the shockwaves and retreated several steps. Crack. After the explosion, the world was originally quiet, but a clear sound broke the silence. Everyone stared at Yi Qinghan because he had broken through the shackles of his realm and successfully stepped into the upper level. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's aura soared into the sky. His Taoist robe was pulled back, and his eyes were filled with disdain. The saints will filled his eyes as he looked down on all living beings. At this moment, Xia Jiulong felt the pressure. His black hair fluttered in the wind as the two supreme experts confronted each other. Yi Qinghan, the sage's attainment of the Tao should be celebrated by the heavens and the earth. Isn't it too disrespectful to the sage if you kill him now? Xia Jiulong said coldly. Yi Qinghan's body was like a bottomless pit, absorbing the spiritual energy of the heavens and earth. His godly power surged like a boundless ocean. He stared at Xia Jiulong and said indifferently, Nine Dragons Crown Prince, your words seem to be biased. Ghost Shensi is arrogant and despotic here, and he blasphemes the saints' prestige and disrespects the heavens. You didn't say anything. The saints have no desires and will not bicker with such ants. I am not a saint, so I naturally have to speak up for Saint He and help him teach this ignorant brat a lesson. Xia Jiulong stared at Yi Qinghan and said indifferently, I have never seen him blaspheme a saint. Seeking love is human nature. If the saints of the world bear witness, there will be no regrets. It can even be said that you respect the saints and hope that they bear witness to represent your true love for junior sister Fan Yin. But you, because of your desire to fight, have delayed the auspicious time to worship the heavens. Yi Qinghan looked at Xia Jiulong and sneered, I am a saint. Why would I fight with an ant who can't differentiate right from wrong? Both of you, come at me together. If I lose, you can say whatever you want. If I win, there's no need to say anything. Xia Jiulong's eyes flashed with killing intent. But he couldn't afford to lose face by teaming up against one person in front of everyone. Today is the day of Saint He's coronation. I won't bicker with you. If you miss today, I will teach you a lesson, Xia Jiulong said coldly. Yi Qinghan sneered and pointed at Xia Jiulong. If you don't dare to fight, then scram. As for Gue Shensi, he can either kneel down and apologize to Saint He or die. There is no third option. Don't think that just because you have a great saint behind you that you can be arrogant and ignore the might of a saint. Killing a great saint's disciple. Hiss. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Even Xia Hohe couldn't stay calm. He didn't want Yi Qinghan to provoke such a huge karma because of him. He hurriedly stood up and said, Sect Master Yi, let's forget about it. There's still an hour before the auspicious time to worship the heavens. I don't care anymore. The heavens want to worship the heavens, so let's end it here. Yi Qinghan's cold light pierced through the void. He stared at Gue Shensi behind Xia Jiulong and asked coldly, Gue Shensi, do you know your wrongs? Gue Shensi's hand was twisted. He had been crippled by Yi Qinghan's saint technique and the ancient city's momentum. He hadn't been able to use his cultivation. He struggled to stand up, his eyes full of viciousness. Huff. 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 Gue Shensi's breathing was rapid and his face was pale. The black divine sword in his hand was stabbed into the ground. He wanted to resist but didn't dare because Yi Qinghan's saint technique had reached great perfection. He was no different from a saint, just not in the saint realm. Gue Shensi ignored Yi Qinghan and faced Xia Hohe, kneeling on one knee and saying sincerely, Saint He, this junior was too eager to court your love. This junior knows his wrongs. This apology saved the Xiaohe sacred ground's face. Xia Hohe's expression also changed. Since Gue Shensi had apologized, he couldn't pursue the matter any further. He went with the flow and said, young people don't know their place. This saint can't take it to heart. This matter ends here. Yi Qinghan looked at Xia Jiulong and Gue Shensi. He didn't want to take action this time, but he had to. Seeing that the matter was settled, he bowed slightly to the saints and quietly left. Everyone had decided in their hearts that Xia Jiulong might not be the first among the younger generation. Fan Yin was the most excited. He took a deep breath and looked at Yi Qinghan's back as he left. He put away the string of strings and turned to leave. The audience ceremony had been delayed. Xiaohe Supreme announced that the ceremony would begin immediately. Xia Hohe stood up and raised his cup to toast the heavens. Whoosh! Everyone raised their cups in unison. Everyone in the Kuang sect was sincere and determined. They all wanted to be blessed by the heavens. The saint technique was 1 in 10,000. But what if they were chosen? Chapter 21:19. Yi Qinghan left. He didn't participate in the heaven veneration ceremony because he knew that the fortune he had obtained was already the best. There was no point in staying any longer. He might as well stand at the first-person point of view and observe the expressions of the heroes of the world. It was the first time for many of the Kuang sect members to participate, so they were looking forward to it. Jiang Jingtian and Gu Qingyu did not get any benefits the first time they participated. If they could not get anything this time, their fates would be sealed. Becoming a saint would be their end. Ghost Shensi's face was full of unwillingness. He thought he could come here to show off, but he had only been arrogant for a while before his face was slapped swollen by Yi Qinghan. However, he was glad that today was Xiaohe's audience ceremony and heaven worship ceremony. Otherwise, Yi Qinghan would not care whether he was a descendant of the supreme sage or not. Xia Jiulong took a deep breath. It was not that he did not want to fight, but he could not afford to lose face. Since Xia Jiulong didn't make a move, the battle had to end. Thus, the heaven worshipping ceremony began. There was no need for the audience. However, Xia Hohe didn't lose face because Yi Qinghan had earned it back. The ghost Shensi knelt on one knee and apologized. Yi Qinghan stood on a tall building, looking down at the world. He handed Shui Lin a wine cup, then took out a jar of wine and said in a low voice, "The ceremony is very important. Although the heavens are heartless and the great path is traceless, the heavens are still there, and the great path is watching the world. Raise your cup to the heavens, and what you get will depend on the will of the heavens." Shui Lin nodded seriously. She took the full cup and raised it above her head, looking at Xia Hohe expectantly. Xia Hohe stood up, raised his cup to the heavens, and said respectfully, "Thank the heavens for recognizing me. I have cultivated for more than 1,000,000 years and have officially become a saint. This first cup of wine is to the heavens." Whoosh! The wine spilled out, drawing a beautiful arc in the air. First, to the heavens. Everyone splashed the wine respectfully. Second, to the great path. Xia Hoha raised his cup again, and everyone followed. Even a saint would not dare to blaspheme the ceremony. Third, to the ancient capital of Xia Hoha. Xia Hoha bowed respectfully to the ancient capital, his face full of respect. Whoosh! The ancient city seemed to have come to life. It was dignified and heavy, and the vicissitudes of time covered the world. Golden light enveloped it, and it was as if the aura of a saint had erupted. All the spirits followed, and so did Xue Lin. She spilled the wine in her cup, and her eyes were full of respect. However, there were also many doubts in the corners of her eyes, and even some resentment. If worshipping the heavens is useful, why was my Daoyuo astral realm razed to the ground and all living beings exterminated? Xue Lin was not reconciled. She was also very confused. What was the use of this ceremony? Whoosh! At this moment, light radiated in all directions. Holy light bathed the entire Xiaohou ancient capital and the area outside the city. The further one went, the dimmer the light became. The heavens bestowed opportunities. Everyone had their own opportunities. Fate was determined by the heavens. But Xue Lin's clear eyes dimmed. She didn't get anything. It was as if God was punishing her for disrespecting God. Yi Qinghan glanced at Lian Xue's face from the corner of his eyes. His vigorous face revealed a trace of helplessness, and a trace of sadness flashed through his eyes. This girl's temperament was still too simple. How could the heavens care about everything? Everything had its order and cause. At this moment, dragons and phoenixes danced in the sky. Strange phenomena appeared at the same time. The sun, the moon, and the stars appeared together in the Milky Way. Everyone fell silent. Everyone was comprehending the blessing from the heavens. Some were ecstatic, some were gloomy, and some were shocked. Joy, anger, sorrow, and joy were all different. Yi Qinghan's divine sense and eyes captured everyone's expressions. The corner of his mouth curled up slightly as if he could see through everyone's minds. The insane sect's expressions were not bad. It seemed that their opportunities were not small. Finally, Yi Qinghan stared at Emperor Feng and Gu Qingyu. The two of them didn't like to show their emotions, but at this moment, they were both shocked and ecstatic. This heaven-bestowed opportunity must have made them unable to remain calm. Yi Qinghan had never doubted Gu Qingyu and Emperor Feng's talents. They only needed opportunities. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and clenched his fists. He continued to search for the insane sect's expressions. Di Longtian, Jiang Jingtian, Li Feng, everyone's expressions represented joy. He couldn't help but nod. It seems that the insane sect's opportunity has come. I planted the seed and let Xiahou he become a saint. In the end, Xiahou he started the ceremony and bestowed the best results to the insane sect. The order of cause and effect in this world is really mysterious. Yi Qinghan sighed softly. He couldn't understand the trajectory of this world. Half a day later, Xiahou he's divine light dissipated. His aura was more restrained. The pressure was invisible, but it made the saints feel pressured. Whoosh! Xiahou he stood up and bowed to the people, thanking them for coming to pray. All the people knelt down, not daring to accept the saint's greeting. Ches Venerable smiled. He wasn't jealous of Xiahou he's opportunity. He only admired him from the bottom of his heart. For someone who had just become a saint to have such achievements, he must be qualified to bear this fruit. The two young men next to Ches Venerable bowed and left without alerting anyone. Yi Qinghan looked at the two young men and was curious about their identities. He was even more curious about why the Ches Venerable was so close to them. They must be related to the Nightwalker judgment. Although I can't feel their true strength, I can imagine that if they use all their strength, they can definitely be compared to Goei Shensi. They might even be on par with me. Yi Qinghan looked at the back of the young men and didn't ask too much. The chess venerable didn't enter the insane sect's courtyard, which meant that he was willing to keep secrets for himself. So, he should keep secrets for him too. Just as everyone was about to leave, Gue Shensi couldn't take this lying down. He raised his head and glared at Yi Qinghan's loft. Yi Qinghan, the day my godly ancestor comes out of seclusion is the day you die. I will ask for the great sage's decree to kill you. Boom! He didn't hide his roar at all. Everyone heard it. Yi Qinghan didn't hide his figure. He stood on the tall pavilion and looked down at everyone. He looked at Gue Shensi's ferocious face with a smile. He didn't ask for anything and didn't even have a trace of anger. It was as if he had really become a saint. I'll wait for you. Yi Qinghan replied calmly, but remember, the next time you see senior sister Fan Yin, please stay away and don't disturb her. This is your promise and the rule I set for you. His voice was calm, but it was filled with determination and order. It didn't allow Gue Shensi to disobey. His deep voice pierced through the clouds and traveled thousands of miles. Everyone could hear it. Gulp. Gue Shensi's eyes were filled with anger. He turned to look at Xia Jiulong. It was all because of Xia Jiulong that he went for wool and came home shorn. Was Xia Jiulong not going to do anything now? Whoosh! Xia Jiulong opened his 9-dragon fan and the dragon's aura was fully displayed. The golden dragon swam around his saint dragon robe. He took a step forward and said, since the heaven-worshipping ceremony is over, I accept your challenge. If you win, you set the rules. If you lose, I will set the rules. Xia Jiulong had declared war in front of all the saints. Back then, after the chess saints' heaven worship ceremony, the two of them had fought. However, at that time, Yi Qinghan's strength was far inferior to Xia Jiulong's. Now, Yi Qinghan might not necessarily lose to him. Chapter 21-20. Xia Jiulong declared the battle in a domineering manner. He wanted the world to witness that no one could take away his #1 position. Yi Qinghan stood in the pavilion and did not speak for a long time. He did not say whether he would accept the challenge or not. At this time, everyone was looking forward to this battle. They were so excited that they felt like they were the main character and should be the one to accept the challenge. Shui Lin looked up at the emotionless Yi Qinghan and asked curiously, Uncle Yi, are you not going to accept the challenge? Yi Qinghan was stunned for a moment, then clenched his fist. Seeing that many people in the Holy Empire were staring at him and Shui Lin, he took a deep breath, licked his white teeth and said, come down with me. Then, Yi Qinghan walked down the pavilion with Shui Lin, making everyone even more anxious. Do you think Yi Qinghan will accept the challenge? With his strength, he can definitely compete with the 9 Dragons Crown Prince. He defeated Gue Shensi in one move. Even Xia Jiulong might not be able to defeat such an expert in one move. So I think even if Yi Qinghan does not accept the challenge, it is definitely not because he is afraid of him. It is very likely that he does not want to reveal too much. Don't talk so much nonsense. If he does not fight today, it means that he does not dare to fight. The Crown Prince is recognized as the #1 in the world. For so many years, no one has ever shaken his throne. Today, Yi Qinghan probably can't do it, or else he would have already made his move. Some people were unhappy with Xia Jiulong and were willing to speak up for Yi Qinghan. However, there were also a large number of experts who were fans of Xia Jiulong and hoped that Xia Jiulong would defeat Yi Qinghan. Both sides argued endlessly, but the number of people was about the same. Gue Shensi's eyes were filled with ruthlessness. He still had many powerful trump cards that he had not revealed. He had underestimated his opponent, otherwise he would not have been defeated in one move. He wanted to regain his face and fight again. Recalling Yi Qinghan's attack, Gue Shensi felt that he still had a chance of winning. Let me fight him again. I don't believe he can defeat me in one move, Gue Shensi said coldly. Xia Jiulong turned his head to look at Gue Shensi. He gently fanned the nine-dragon fan and shook his head. You don't have the Eternal Saint robe or the Eternal Saint weapon. How are you going to fight him? It's not that I'm looking down on you, it's just that you don't have enough foundation. Gue Shensi exhaled heavily and comforted himself. He thought to himself, that's right, he's only relying on the Yinyang Bagua Daoist robe and the eternal gloves. When I go back, I must ask the God Ancestor to help me refine the eternal sacred weapon and the eternal sacred robe. It's best if you take back your face this time. The discussion became louder and louder. Yi Qinghan had not appeared yet, but some people hid in the crowd and cursed loudly. They were all cursing Yi Qinghan, thinking that he was too arrogant. He should have just said whether he wanted to fight or not. He was acting so mysterious, like a saint. Xia Jiulong was not in a hurry, because he had fought Yi Qinghan so many times. He knew that Yi Qinghan would not give up because of fear. Either he did not want to fight today, or he was afraid that Xia Jiulong would capture Lin Shui, so he had to give up this battle. Xia Jiulong smiled. He was confident that if he fought, he could win. If he did not fight, he would win the momentum and the overall situation. The throne would always be his. At this moment, Yi Qinghan stepped out of the city wall with Lin Shui. His slender figure cast a long shadow under the sunlight. The short and thin Lin Shui followed closely behind Yi Qinghan. She stared at Xia Jiulong with her big eyes. Maybe it was because of her bloodline, but when she saw Xia Jiulong, her eyes were full of anger and resentment. She wanted to kill him. Boom! Heaven and earth roared. Dark clouds covered the sky and lightning flashed. Murderous intent filled the air. Thousands of heroes gathered outside the city. The saints stood proudly in their places. They all wanted to see if the throne would change hands today. The Cloud Dragon Sage wanted Yi Qinghan dead all the time. He could not fight in front of everyone. Otherwise, the Heavenly Grandmaster Sage would kill him. Therefore, he could only hope that Xia Jiulong would kill Yi Qinghan today. Jiulong, you must kill Yi Qinghan today. Even if you have to team up with the son of the ghost god, the honor of being first is not important. Otherwise, you will not have a chance. The Cloud Dragon Sage reminded. Xia Jiulong gently fanned the nine-dragon fan. He stared at Yi Qinghan, who was walking out of the city. He nodded slightly and secretly sent a voice transmission, "Uncle, please capture Lin Shui behind him. She is the princess of the Daluo astral realm. The starry chessboard is in her hands." The Cloud Dragon Sage only noticed Lin Shui now. His eyes flashed. The starry chessboard was a supreme saint artifact. If someone could control it, even if they could not be compared to the Saint Lord, they would be much stronger than other eternal saints. Crack! The Cloud Dragon Sage took a deep breath and nodded fiercely. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan stirred up the momentum of heaven and earth. He took Lin Shui directly to the eternal saint of the Oshi sacred ground. Yar Saint was right beside him. The eternal saint of the Oshi sacred ground was a middle-aged man. He had blonde hair and blue eyes. He was fundamentally different from the Easterners. He looked slightly rougher. Yi Qinghan bowed slightly and said, "Greetings, Saint. I am Yi Qinghan. This time, I want to go to the Oshi sacred ground to propose marriage. I have prepared a big gift. It is our first time meeting. I hope you can take care of me." The eternal saint was the son of the emperor saint of the Oshi sacred ground. He was also Yar Saint's grandfather. Yar Saint had already told him about Yi Qinghan's purpose, so he was not too surprised. He just nodded gently and said, "We can talk about Yar later. I can't make the decision. Let's talk about it when you arrive at the Oshi sacred ground. At least I will not object." Yi Qinghan smiled and said, "Thank you, Senior." I will accept the challenge today. Please take care of this child for me. Don't let a thief take her away. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan did not hide anything and directly agreed to the challenge. He was just giving some instructions. When Xia Jiulong heard Yi Qinghan's words, he clenched his 9-dragon fan and took a few steps back. He signaled Gue Shensi with his eyes and secretly said, "Find a chance to kill him later. Don't worry too much. Saints can't intervene. The Cloud Dragon Sage will arrange everything." Gue Shensi was stunned. He did not expect Xia Jiulong to not have the confidence to defeat Yi Qinghan. He wanted the two of them to work together and launch a sneak attack. "Okay, as long as you can bear the blame." Gue Shensi replied calmly. Xia Jiulong smiled confidently. The title of the Holy Master was enough to make the Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage compromise. As for the Oshi Sacred Ground, they were not married yet. They would not work together with the Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage for Yi Qinghan. The chess saint and saint he looked at Xia Jiulong, Gue Shensi, and Yi Qinghan seriously. They were the three strongest of the younger generation. Only the Dark Walker Judge was not here. Yi Qinghan is at a disadvantage. Looking at Xia Jiulong and Gue Shensi's expressions, it seems like they are going to work together. He can't fight against them. Saint He, you are the host. Think of a way to stop this battle. The chess saint reminded in a low voice. Xia Hoha frowned and was very anxious. He clenched his fists. He could naturally see that Gue Shensi and Xia Jiulong were up to no good. Just as Xia Hoha was about to stop them, Yi Qinghan's figure flashed and appeared in the center of the battlefield. His divine robe was cold and his aura was strong. He waved his hand and held it in his hand. He pointed at Xia Jiulong and said, "The number one position of the younger generation has changed hands today." Chapter 21-21. Yi Qinghan pointed his long saber in response. Both sides had agreed to fight, and no one could stop them. Xiaoho he was a step too late. This was a great battle for the number one position in the world, a battle of supremes. The world's heroes were shining brightly as they looked into the distance. It seemed even livelier than the heaven worship ceremony. Some people cheered for Yi Qinghan, representing the grassroots. They hoped that they could be like Yi Qinghan, break the shackles, and surpass everything. Of course, more people were loyal to the emperor. They did not want the legend to be broken by a talent from a small domain. The group was getting bigger and bigger. Even the experts of the sacred ground had to take sides. The people of the Kuang sect stood neatly on the side of the Oshi sacred ground. They looked calm, but in fact, they were holding divine weapons in both hands, afraid that Yi Qinghan would be attacked. This time, the battlefield was enlarged by hundreds of times. Everything within a radius of 100 miles was the battlefield. Several experts stood guard in all directions to prevent the battle between the two from affecting the innocent. Boom! Yi Qinghan stabbed his saber into the ground and stared at Xia Jiulong. Obviously, he was not going to use his weapon at the beginning. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Xia Jiulong shook the 9-dragon fan. His breathing was calm, but the light in his eyes was scorching and crazy. His fingertips trembled slightly, and the 9-dragon fan was hidden in his body. "I will fight you fairly. I will not take advantage of you. Today, I will rely on myself to suppress you," Xia Jiulong replied confidently. Yi Qinghan withdrew the eternal glove as a faint smile appeared on his face. His deep and hoarse voice filled the surroundings. "Today, one of us will leave lying down. Life or death." Xia Jiulong said coldly with murderous intent. Yi Qinghan looked at Xia Jiulong's murderous face and smiled indifferently. He did not want to kill Xia Jiulong, nor did he want to defeat him completely. Such an enemy was much easier to deal with than an eternal saint. As long as he gave Yunlong Saint a little hope, he would not personally take action, and he would have enough time to step into the eternal saint realm. Then let's begin. Yi Qinghan's eyes shone brightly. He raised his hands slightly and performed the 10-word spell of Tai Chi Immortal Cannon. He controlled the power of heaven and earth, waiting for Xia Jiulong's attack. Xia Jiulong's aura fluctuated. Billions of stars appeared in the sky, and countless stars surrounded his golden body. The power of the stars was dense. He had already cultivated the art of stars to the 33rd form, and his strength had increased by 100-fold. No wonder he was so confident. Yi Qinghan narrowed his eyes as he looked at Xia Jiulong. He knew that it was impossible for him to win against Xia Jiulong with just the Taiji Immortal Codex. After all, his cultivation of the Taiji Immortal Codex was only half-baked. His strength was far from Xia Jiulong's grand completion level. His aura changed again as he activated his saint technique. A vigorous and ancient aura filled the sky. It was as if a saint had descended to the world. The ancient Xiaohu was augmented by his golden body. The majestic golden body transformed into a god of war, radiating divine light in all directions. The saint's divine ability tore through space and time, and the mystical mysteries condensed into a divine dragon dancing in the air. Yi Qinghan's draconic aura became even stronger and purer than Xia Jiulong's. Yi Qinghan had the bloodline of a heavenly dragon, a direct descendant of the eternal holy dragon. Even though he was still a young dragon, his draconic aura was not weak. What a pure draconic aura! This Yi Qinghan can't be the holy dragon's son, right? Over 20 saints exchanged astonished glances. Even the cloud dragon sage was astonished. The current Yi Qinghan was no longer the same as before. He was definitely not an ant that could be slaughtered by anyone. The cloud dragon sage's killing intent grew even stronger as he thought to himself, this guy must not be left alive. Otherwise, even if I were to make a move personally, I might not be able to kill him, let alone Jiulong. Boom! Just as everyone was feeling astonished, Yi Qinghan and Xia Jiulong crushed the ground at the same time and soared into the sky. Waving their palms, they controlled the world's great Tao and mystical abilities. Their palms collided, and the air currents instantly gushed out over 100 li, smashing into the saint's barrier. Boom boom boom. Hua hua hua. The duo's speed had already surpassed the limits, and their afterimages could even shatter space. They were just like real people, and their killing prowess was extremely strong. Swoosh 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 swoosh. The two of them leaped into the air, casually gathering air to form blades. The sharpness of their blades was not inferior to superior divine weapons, and in the blink of an eye, they had launched over 1,000 attacks. Everyone's faces turned numb, and goosebumps broke out all over their bodies. Their blood boiled, and they wished they could join in the fight. Boom! The two of them struck out with their elbows, and the absolute saint golden body clashed against the unparalleled dragon physique. The phantom image of a sacred dragon appeared behind them, roaring furiously. Kill! With a furious roar, the two of them went all out. They activated their saint techniques, and they had reached the point of perfection. Their battle cries shook the sky, like 10,000 horses galloping. The sacred dragon robe and the Yin-Yang 8 trigrams Taoist robe were both extremely precious high-grade eternal divine robes, and their defensive prowess was extremely abnormal. However, at this moment, their blood splattered across the sky, and the bones between their thumb and forefinger were shattered. Their bodies were bathed in golden blood. The huge hand that covered the sky suppressed the heavens, cutting off the mountains and rivers. It was even impossible to tell which one was Yi Qinghan and which one was Xia Jiulong. Astral Technique's 33rd move, Astral Convergence, Heaven Severing Palm. Hua! The stars turned into a huge hand, and 10,000 stars flashed, turning into a blade that cut through the void and slashed toward Yi Qinghan. Wherever it passed, everything was destroyed, and the afterimages turned into nothingness. The saint force crashed into the saint boundary, and the boundary shook. Yi Qinghan stood on the ground with his back facing the ancient city. He put his palms together, crossed them, and pulled them apart in front of his forehead. Mysterious runes shot out from his body. Saint technique, heaven and earth convergence, all techniques descend. Divine powers appear. Swoosh. 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 At this moment, Yi Qinghan used thousands of secret techniques, all of which were saint divine powers. He controlled the power of heaven and earth, and it was as if thousands of Yi Qinghan were suppressing Xia Jiulong at the same time. Each of the clones had terrifying offensive power, and the space-time was distorted as if it would be crushed at any time. Boom! Boom! Swoosh! Yi Qinghan's powerful attacks crashed into the heaven-severing palm, and they were broken continuously. They could not stop Xia Jiulong's power at all. One attack was broken, two more. After 800 attacks, Yi Qinghan's divine power kept pouring out, and Xia Jiulong's attack was almost worn down. When all of the clones were broken, Xia Jiulong's attack hit the ground, and the city shook. However, it did not hurt Yi Qinghan at all. Whoosh! Whoosh! Both of them were breathing rapidly, and neither could do anything to the other. Fan Yin, who was standing in the distance, was more excited and nervous than anyone else. Only she knew how strong Xia Jiulong was. She had never won against him before. She did not expect her junior brother to be able to fight him to a standstill. Gue Shenzi was already gathering his qi, waiting for an opportunity. However, Yi Qinghan still had 50% of his strength, so he did not dare to act rashly. If his first attack failed, there would be no next time. Xia Jiulong did not expect his strongest attack to fail to break through Yi Qinghan's defense. He clenched his fists, and his palms formed another seal. 9 divine dragons coiled around him, and his aura soared. Roar! The divine dragons roared, crushing the will of all living beings. Roar! Roar! At this moment, Yi Qinghan transformed into a divine dragon. Using the divine dragon in his sea of consciousness, he expanded infinitely and broke through the sage's barrier, looking down on all living beings. Ant! He roared, as if he did not even put the sage in his eyes. Whoosh! Everyone exclaimed, and they frantically fled. The sage's barrier was no longer effective. Stop! Do you too want to destroy all living beings and become enemies with the world? Xiahou he angrily rebuked. This was his grand audience. If a one-sided massacre happened, he would have nowhere to put his old face. Pull them apart. Cloud Dragon Sage, you take care of the 9 dragons crown prince. Leave Sect Master Yi to me, Xiahou Supreme said in a deep voice. Whoosh! Whoosh! The sage personally took action. Drawing the sky as a prison, Xiahou Supreme captured Yi Qinghan alive, suppressing his dragon body, and finally imprisoning him. Cloud Dragon Sage had no choice but to take action to suppress Xia Jiulong. Some of the lower realm cultivators were so scared that they wet their pants. The two's auras were too strong, just like sages. Once they started fighting, these lower and middle realm cultivators would definitely become cannon fodder. The world fell into a dead silence, afraid that the two sages would not be able to suppress these two monsters. Yi Qinghan struggled for a moment. He was ultimately not a sage. Xiahou Supreme's will was comparable to the heavens, and he could not go against it. Chapter 21-22. Xia Jiulong was unwilling to give up, but the Cloud Dragon Sage had already made his move. Even if he wanted to resist, he could only retract his aura. The Cloud Dragon Sage glanced at him coldly, then stared at Yi Qinghan. He said hoarsely, I didn't expect you to be a descendant of the Divine Dragon. You're no different from us humans. Xiahou Jizun also released him. Yi Qinghan exhaled and replied calmly, Cloud Dragon Sage, what do you mean? Are you saying that the 9 Dragons Crown Prince can transform into a divine dragon, but I can't? If I do, I'm no longer a human. The Cloud Dragon Sage replied indifferently, you can transform, but I'm not so stupid that I can't tell the difference. You clearly transformed into your original body. I can guarantee that the divine dragon is your original body. You're not from this small domain, but a remnant of the coiling dragon realm. The descendant of the divine dragon. Just one sentence was enough to sentence Yi Qinghan to death. Yi Qinghan sneered in disdain. So what if you're a sage? In this day and age, you can still suppress others with your status. You can go and ask the heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage if I'm the holy dragon of the coiling dragon realm. Don't think that you can spout nonsense just because you're a sage. I can't beat you in terms of strength, but I can convince you in terms of logic, Yi Qinghan said in a low voice, neither servile nor overbearing. In this world, who would dare to talk to a sage alone with such an attitude? Xia Jiulong was strong enough, and Gue Shensi was arrogant enough, but they definitely wouldn't dare to talk back to a sage alone. The Cloud Dragon Sage couldn't directly kill Yi Qinghan. The Grandmaster Grand Sage alone was enough to tie him down. If he killed Yi Qinghan without reason, the Grandmaster Grand Sage could play him to death. The Cloud Dragon Sage looked at the other eternal sages, but none of them sided with him. They didn't help either side. Some deliberately talked to Xiahou He and chose to ignore them. Yi Qinghan snorted, unwilling to speak with the Cloud Dragon Sage. However, his sacred dragon bloodline was indeed suspicious. After all, there was an eternal sacred dragon bloodline hidden in his sea of consciousness. Xia Jiulong was indignant. He had wanted to use his immortal sealing imprint to directly touch Yi Qinghan, but he had broken the sage's enchantment in the early stages of the battle. The sage had no choice but to intervene, so this battle could not continue. Yi Qinghan, I'll spare your life today for the sake of the sage. The next time we meet, I'll definitely kill you, Xia Jiulong said coldly. Gue Shensi said coldly, that's what I wanted to say as well. 100 years later, my godly ancestor will come out of seclusion and announce to the world. Let's see if you dare to come. 100 years was neither long nor short. For many people, 100 years would pass in the blink of an eye. However, for Yi Qinghan, who was racing against time, 100 years was enough for him to stabilize his position in the upper level. He could even reach the middle or peak of the upper level. His cultivation was not comparable to a sage's, but he could easily kill anyone below the sage's level. 100 years. I'll accept the challenge, but the location will not be at the grand ceremony of the great sage. It will be in the snowfield of Beijiang. If you're interested, you can come. Of course, you can join forces with the 9 Dragons Crown Prince, Yi Qinghan said lightly. Strong enough. No one laughed at Yi Qinghan for bragging. Who could fight with Xia Jiulong to this extent? Only Yi Qinghan. Xia Jiulong's face was calm, but his heart was raging with murderous intent. Ever since Yi Qinghan appeared in the outside world, he had fought with Xia Jiulong no less than 5 times. However, Xia Jiulong had never gained an advantage. Today, he had even lost face. How could Xia Jiulong not be angry? Beijiang Snowfield, Jade Snow Peak. 100 years later, I'll wait for you there. I don't need anyone to interfere. Only one of us can walk out of Jade Snow Peak. The other will be buried in Jade Snow Peak, Xia Jiulong said coldly. Yi Qinghan smiled indifferently and turned to leave. The wounds on his body quickly healed and his Taoist robe returned to normal. His aura was restrained. Although the Taoist robe was ugly, it was very useful. Whoosh! The Taoist robe quickly disappeared. Yi Qinghan's robe was as white as snow. His strong and handsome face was enough to drive all the female cultivators crazy. Fanine pouted and snorted, arrogant. Show off. Woo-woo, the heroes of the world cheered and the female cultivators screamed. They had become Yi Qinghan's most fervent fans. Emperor Yi and Bai Shaoxing stood beside Wu Xinjuan with smiles on their faces. They were filled with happiness and adoration. They were not worried because Yi Qinghan had become strong. This feeling would not change even if the world changed. Wu Xinjuan's white hair fluttered in the wind. He glanced at his two daughters and sighed. He was a saint and could not see through Yi Qinghan's life trajectory. However, he could still see the life trajectories of his two daughters. Their lives should not have appeared in this world. Even if they did, there would still be a great calamity in their lives. If they could not avoid it, their souls would be destroyed forever. Even a saint like him could not save them. The two of you, stay away from Yi Qinghan. His cultivation has not reached the great saint realm. He has no right to marry my daughters. You can't even see them. Wu Xinjuan said coldly. Emperor Yi and Bai Shaoxing were shocked. They did not think that Wu Xinjuan's attitude would change so quickly. Your calamity is getting closer and closer. You are close to death. If you want to live, leave him. This is the only way. Wu Xinjuan said indifferently. He did not give the two any room for discussion. Finally, he said firmly, there is no room for discussion. I am your father. I don't care about your past lives. In this life, you are my daughters. I will protect you. Emperor Yi and Bai Shaoxing's expressions changed. They could feel Wu Xinjuan's fatherly love. They did not want to make things difficult for him. They nodded and said in unison, we will listen to father. I believe that he can reach the great saint realm. If you die because of Yi Qinghan, then you'll truly die and lose him forever. Even if he cultivates to the great sage realm, he won't be able to change anything. Instead, he'll feel even more despair. As for him, if his destiny is good enough, he can reach the peak even without you two. Your feelings are there, and they won't change. For him, for you too, go back and cultivate in peace. Until you reach the saint realm, you're not allowed to come out. Emperor Yi smiled bitterly. It seemed that Wu Xinjuan had made up his mind. He did not want to be entangled with this matter. He did not want to lose this fatherly love. Emperor Yi and Yi Qinghan looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with reluctance to part, and all the words they wanted to say were contained in their gaze. Yi Qinghan understood what he was thinking. He nodded at Emperor Yi and transmitted his voice to him, saying, you don't have to go against his wishes. I will provide you with celestial pills that will allow you to advance to the saint plane. Cultivate in peace and don't worry about anything. Emperor Yi pursed his lips and nodded seriously. Wu Xinjuan was close to Emperor Yi and could definitely intercept Yi Qinghan's message. Hearing Yi Qinghan's words, he nodded with satisfaction. Chapter 21-23. The experts from all sides quickly dispersed. Only the chess saint was still waiting. Yi Qinghan hurriedly said to Gu Qingyu and the others, follow the chess saint back. After returning, immediately go into seclusion to comprehend the blessings of heaven. Don't come out unless something major happens. Okay. Gu Qingyu, Jiang Jingtian, and the others cupped their fists and said. The chess saint nodded to Yi Qinghan and secretly transmitted his voice, be careful. There is no turning back for you and the Holy Empire. I can't help you much. You can only rely on yourself. Yi Qinghan smiled slightly and did not reply. He just bowed and thanked him. Soon, the chess saint took everyone from the insane sect away. When the Cloud Dragon Sage saw Yi Qinghan and the eternal saint of the Oshi sacred ground gathering, he knew that there was no chance, so he returned to the Holy Empire with Xia Jiulong. Gue Shenzi left with the experts of the Gue Shen clan. Xiaohou ancient city quickly quieted down. Xiaohou he looked at Yi Qinghan gratefully and said with a wry smile, I'm really sorry. It was this old man who caused you to offend two young sovereigns at the same time. Yi Qinghan shrugged indifferently and replied, "You're too polite, sage he. This matter has nothing to do with you. Even if it wasn't for you, I would have taken action today. After all, Fan Yin is my senior sister. Kid, you still have some conscience. I thought you would hide and watch the show." Fan Yin reprimanded in a bad mood. Yi Qinghan smiled slightly and said faintly, "How can that be? How can I bear to let such a beautiful senior sister be defiled by a bastard?" Fan Yin snorted and said, "You're so poor. If Gue Shensi really gets the great sage's decree to kill you this time, even the saints can't protect you. I'd better go back and ask the old man to get you a protective talisman." After saying that, Fan Yin turned and left with a smile on her face. Yi Qinghan smiled as he watched her leave under the protection of the three deans. Then, he bowed to Xiahou He and Xiahou Jizun and left with the eternal saint of the Oshi Holy Land. The eternal saint personally took action. He led Yarsheng, Fan Yin, and Yi Qinghan into the void. Their speed was much faster than Yi Qinghan's forbidden technique. It would take a peak eternal saint a year to travel from the Xiahou sacred land to the edge of the Oshi sacred land, traversing countless powerful sects and sacred lands. The holy land of Oshi was vast and boundless, but it was rather lacking in resources. Most of it was barren mountain ranges, but it was too big, so big that it was comparable to the territory of 2 or 3 holy empires. It was precisely because there was a large area of barren mortal land here that the Holy Empire had not made a move for a long time, and the Holy Land of Oshi could stand proudly to this day. The eternal saint of the Oshi Holy Land took the 3 of them and rushed to the Oshi Holy Land for a year before stopping. Saints also needed to rest. Let's take a walk and see the territory of the Oshi Holy Land. It's also a good opportunity for you to see the local customs of the Oshi Holy Land. The middle-aged saint said in a deep voice. The 4 of them chatted along the way. Yi Qinghan learned that this saint was Yarsheng's 6th-generation grandfather. He was known as the Saint of Light. He controlled the light element and was especially good at controlling time and space. The Oshi Holy Land had 4 eternal saints and 1 absolute saint. Among them, the 4 eternal saints inherited the absolute saint's 4 great holy techniques, namely light, love, life, and power. The most powerful one was the saint of power, but the most terrifying one was the goddess of love. This person could control the souls of all living beings. As long as they looked into her eyes, she could make the eternal saint self-destruct. However, she had never used the highest level of this holy technique because it was at the cost of her life origin. The 4 eternal saints were the direct descendants of the absolute saint. They didn't have a good relationship, but once there was an invasion from outside, they would definitely unite against it. Yi Qinghan had a general understanding of the Oshi Holy Land, but if he wanted Lin Wuqian to successfully marry Yarsheng, he still needed to have a systematic understanding of the Oshi Holy Land. He needed to thoroughly understand the customs of the Oshi Holy Land. Otherwise, let alone seeing the Absolute Saint, it would be good enough if he could enter the Absolute Saint city of the Oshi Holy Land. Everywhere they went, Yarsheng would explain the customs of the place and how the love between men and women was tested. Lin Wuqian and Yi Qinghan listened to her explanation tirelessly. Everywhere they went, they would gain more knowledge. However, there were many places in the Oshi Holy Land where the resources were not even as good as the small domain world. Mortals could be seen everywhere. When they saw the cultivators, their eyes were full of awe and yearning. Time flew by like a shuttle, as fast as flowing water. In the blink of an eye, 5 years had passed. The 4 of them walked through about 100 cities and crossed the distance of about 2 ordinary holy lands. Finally, they entered the bustling world of cultivators. Their cultivation methods were different from those of the East. The East mainly cultivated the soul and the physical body, while the Oshi Holy Land mainly cultivated the mind. However, they were different methods to achieve the same result. In the end, what they comprehended was always the great path and the law. It was hard to say who was more advanced, but in the early stage of cultivation, the Eastern cultivators were always stronger. This is the territory of the goddess of love. I will take you to visit her first and make arrangements in advance. If she can agree to let the Holy Land's imperial saintess marry to the east, this matter will be half successful. If she doesn't agree, your matter will basically be impossible. The Saint of Light said with certainty, marrying an emperor's saintess is a very important matter. Throughout the generations, the emperor's saintesses have never been married to the east. This seems to be a custom and a promise. This is your first time, so I can't give you a definite answer. Yar Saint also looked nervous. The imperial saintess had her own choice when marrying, but before, she had chosen the young masters of the Oshi Holy Land. But now, she had chosen an eastern cultivator, and not someone from a top holy land. She did not have much confidence. She could only ask for the support of the four saints. When the time came, the Holy Emperor would also reconsider. Lin Wuxian held the divine sword and took a deep breath. For this marriage it was not only his business, but also the business of the Guangzong. As long as the marriage was successful, the Guangzong could be considered to have successfully stood firm in the big world. If it failed, the Guangzong would be in danger. Yi Qinghan was very calm. In his opinion, there was nothing in the world that could not be driven by interests. Even if there were, with endless resources as the price, it was enough to break all pressure. The Saint of Light reminded the three of them and took them into the void. A month later, they entered a vast city. The spiritual qi here was very active, and the elements were much purer than those in the east. The west cultivated the elements, while the east cultivated the spiritual qi. Therefore, the ratio of elements and spiritual qi contained in the air between the two places was very different. This city is called the Holy City of Love. Here, meaningless killing is strictly prohibited. If you want to kill, you must apply for official approval under open circumstances. You must fight one-on-one, which is a duel. The goddess of love may let you fight a few rounds to test your strength and temperament. You must seize this opportunity. If you miss this opportunity, it will be difficult in the future, the Saint of Light continued to remind them. Thank you, Senior. Lin Wuxian thanked him respectfully. The Saint of Light glanced at Lin Wuxian, then looked at Yi Qinghan and smiled. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. You are the enemy of the Holy Land, so you are the friends of the Oshi Holy Land. Moreover, I have seen the strength of the two of you. I am more optimistic about the two of you, so I am willing to help you. Chapter 21-24. The Holy City of Love was particularly harmonious, and the aura of love was everywhere. Although there was no lack of battles, they were all fair one-on-one duels. In the Holy City of Love, female cultivators were supreme, and men were just accessories. Powerful female cultivators could be seen everywhere with many followers behind them. Yi Qinghan and the others quickly followed the Saint of Light into the city. Their auras were restrained, but their eastern appearance still attracted many people's attention, especially some women. Their eyes suddenly lit up as they stared at Yi Qinghan and Lin Wuxian. However, Yar Sheng was a member of the royal family, and her eyes were a symbol, so no one dared to act recklessly. It seemed that no one knew Yar Sheng and the Saint of Light. Both of them were extremely low-key. In the blink of an eye, they entered the center of the city with Yi Qinghan and went straight to the saintess mansion. The goddess of love was the third-generation saintess, and Yar Sheng was the 18th-generation saintess. The goddess of love's level was much higher than Yar Sheng's. Even Yar Sheng had to be respectful here. The gate of the saintess mansion was majestic and solemn. Two giant tigers guarded the gate. At first glance, they thought they were statues, but when they got closer, they realized that they were actually alive. The lightning tiger was a mutated beast that wielded the power of lightning. It was a high-tier saint beast, and it had already cultivated to upper saint realm. Lightning crackled in its eyes, and as soon as it saw the four of them approaching, it stood up. It was around 8 meters tall, and it had a muscular body, thick limbs, and sharp white fangs. Roar! A deep roar reverberated through the air, causing the four people's hair to flutter in the wind. Whoosh! The Saint of Light exuded the pressure of a saint, and the light element bathed the two thunder tigers. He frowned and whispered, "The Saint of Light has brought 3 children to visit the Saintess of Love. I hope that the Saintess will come out and meet us." The low voice condensed into a line, and in the blink of an eye, it rushed into the depths of the Saintess mansion. At this moment, Yarshen was excited. She had only seen the goddess of love once. She was a woman that made all men go crazy. She represented love and beauty, and was supreme. She was single and unmarried. The younger generation did not know why, but the 4 saints of the Oshi sacred land knew, so the relationship between the 4 was very bad. Yarsheng also knew that the 4 saints' relationship was very bad, so she was not sure if the goddess of love would meet her, Lin Wutian, and Yi Qinghan today. The Thunder Tiger didn't make way for them, which meant that the Saintess of Love hadn't made her stand yet. The Saint of Light's face was gloomy. Regret and helplessness appeared on his vigorous face. The sadness in his eyes could not be dispelled. Back then, we were wrong. Love. Now that the scene has reappeared, I don't want to repeat the same mistake. Give me another chance. The Saint of Light transmitted his voice again, but this time, other than himself, only the Saintess of Love could hear it. Scram! A cold voice rushed from the mansion into the sea of consciousness of the Saint of Light. The Saint of Light's body trembled, and his body involuntarily took a step back. A sense of sadness and regret arose spontaneously. When Yi Qinghan saw this, he knew that the Saint of Light and the Goddess of Love had a grudge, and it involved feelings. He thought to himself, "I'm afraid I won't be able to see her today." Yar Saint did not know the truth and could only look at the Saint of Light for help. Sigh. Let's go. The Saint of Light sighed and turned to leave. In an instant, his back was filled with desolation and sorrow. Yar Saint did not dare to ask more, and Yi Qinghan did not dare to ask more. He could only follow the Saint of Light and leave. The Saintess mansion was dead silent. Only the maids were walking around. The environment was beautiful, and the decorations were more oriental. Flowers flew and butterflies danced, and it was magnificent. There was no trace of the Goddess of Love. The Saint of Light did not lead the 3 of them directly out of the holy city of love. Instead, they entered a restaurant. The 4 of them asked for a private room and had a simple meal. Then, they all fell silent. The Saint of Light looked apologetic and said helplessly, "I can't help you. The Goddess of Love has not appeared for many years. Other than the Emperor Ancestor, she will not see anyone. Shouldn't you be family? You are connected by blood. Why do I feel like there is a grudge between you two?" Yi Qinghan could not suppress his curiosity and finally asked. When it came to grudges, the Saint of Light was even more annoyed and helpless. He lowered his head and remained silent for a long time. Yar Saint also did not know why the 4 saints of the Holy Land would not see each other. They were very prejudiced against each other. However, she did not dare to ask because she had asked the Emperor Ancestor once. The Emperor Ancestor was angry at her for the first time. Since then, this matter had been a mystery that no one could unravel. After a long time, the Saint of Light held his head and said regretfully, "What happened back then, I can't say who was right or wrong. However, from the perspective of the Saintess of Love, we were wrong. She only fell in love once in her life. Moreover, the other party was not from the Oshi Holy Land. He was not even from the Eternal World. He was the Crown Prince of the Daluo Star Realm, the 9-star Saint. Back then, when the Holy Empire attacked the Daluo Star Realm, the 9-star saint asked for help from the Oshi Holy Land. Yar saint sucked in a breath of cold air. No wonder the goddess of love was still unwilling to come out. She was even cold to the emperor ancestor. At the mention of the 9-star saint, Yi Qinghan's pupils shrank. He quickly asked, "The 9-star saint? Is there a 9-star alignment under his feet?" The saint of light frowned and shook his head. "I don't know. This is a private matter." However, the 9-star saint was infinitely close to becoming a saint at a very young age. He is also the only one who has remained undefeated against a saint when he was at the great circle of the upper level. This is a legend, a record that no one has broken until now. No wonder the old woman of the 3rd generation cares so much about him. He is so outstanding. Yar saint murmured. The saint of light sighed. Yes, he is very outstanding. Back then, the emperor ancestor was also willing to help the Daoyuo astral realm and even wanted to form a marriage alliance. However, the sky-reaching church stood on the side of the Holy Empire. The sky-reaching church personally informed the emperor ancestor that as long as the Oshi sacred ground attacked the Holy Empire, the sky-reaching church would definitely not sit idly by. Therefore, the emperor ancestor asked us to vote. The 3 of us opposed, so he hesitated. However, he did not consider that the Holy Empire was too powerful. In just a few months when the emperor ancestor hesitated, the Holy Emperor of the Holy Empire joined forces with the 9 saints to suppress the Daoyuo astral realm's emperor and destroy everything. The 9-star saint's life was never found. No wonder, Yi Qinghan clenched his fist. The Oshi sacred ground was unique in that the relationship between the saints of the Holy Lands was so bad. Is the person in the sealed sky prison stepping on the stars the 9-star saint? Yi Qinghan was not sure. Lin Shui did not give him a definite answer. Lin Jun also did not know. After all, Lin Shui was still too young at that time. 9-star saint? Yi Qinghan frowned and asked in a deep voice, "Back then, why was the crown prince called the 9-star saint?" The saint of light thought for a moment and said, "His name is Lin Jiuxing. It doesn't seem to have any special meaning." Hua. Yi Qinghan stood up and said firmly, "I am going to see the goddess of love. I must find out who the existence in the sealed sky prison is." After speaking, Yi Qinghan rushed out of the restaurant alone and went straight to the saintess' residence. Chapter 21-25. Yi Qinghan rushed down the restaurant and went straight to the saintess' residence without the light saint's permission. Outside the saintess' residence, Lei Hu was still guarding the door, glaring at Yi Qinghan, not allowing him to step into the residence. Yi Qinghan stood at the entrance, cupped his fists, and said, "Junior Yi Qinghan of the East requests the goddess of love to come out and meet me. I have something important to tell you, and it may involve your deepest feelings. Junior is not sure, so I hope Senior can come out and clear my doubts." The saintess' residence was silent, and there was no reply. Roar. Lei Hu saw that the saintess of love did not come out, so he roared and pressed on, wanting Yi Qinghan to leave. Yi Qinghan did not retreat, and his eyes were deep as he stared at the residence, hoping that the goddess of love would come out to meet him. Whether or not the person in the ceiling sky prison was a 9-star saint, at least one doubt would be eliminated. But if it was a 9-star saint, the goddess of love would definitely join forces with him and support Lin Wuqian in marrying Yar saint. At this time, Yar saint and Lin Wuqian chased from afar, but the light saint did not come because he knew that even if he did, it would only anger the goddess of love. Yar saint bowed and asked, "The 18th generation saintess requests an audience with the 3rd generation ancestor. I have something important to ask you to come out." But after half an hour, there was still no reply from the saintess' residence. Boom! Yar saint knelt at the gate, unwilling to get up no matter how Lin Wuqian tried to pull him. The goddess of love seemed indifferent, and she was unwilling to come out. 2 hours passed, For hours passed, the color of the sky gradually darkened, a drizzle of rain swirling about. The gloomy and cold wind was bone-chilling, blowing at the three individuals' divine robes. The rainwater messed up their black hair, messily draping over their shoulders. Yi Qinghan had no intention of leaving. This matter was too important, and it was the hope of getting the goddess of love to help. At this time, a clear and ethereal voice floated out from the residence. You can go. I won't see you. My line is broken, and I don't want to care about the world anymore. Your saint was in despair. He didn't know how to move the goddess of love and get her to come out. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed and he said in a deep voice, Senior, do you know the person who stepped on the stars? The atmosphere in the saintess residence surged. Dark clouds pressed down on the ground, and the atmosphere was extremely oppressive. However, the goddess of love still did not respond. It was as if she did not hear Yi Qinghan's words. Senior, perhaps you don't know about stepping on the stars, but have you heard of the 9-star alignment and controlling the stars with a wave of your hand? If you still don't know, the star chessboard should know, right? Yi Qinghan was unwilling to give up, so he spoke again. Whoosh! In a split second, Yi Qinghan felt his throat being choked by a pair of hands as he was lifted off the ground. The invisible hand did not even give him a chance to resist. Yi Qinghan's holy golden body struggled madly, but to no avail. Even his feet were pulled off the ground, and his face turned red. Senior, we have no intention of blasphemy. At this moment, even Lin Wuxia knelt down in shock. He did not expect the strength of a saint to be so exaggerated. She could choke Yi Qinghan to death with just a thought. Grandmother, you are a symbol of love. You can understand my feelings. Please give me a chance. Just a little chat. If I can't change your mind, we won't disturb you anymore, Yarshing said anxiously. Yi Qinghan's throat was almost severed by the invisible hand. The terrifying willpower was about to destroy his soul and physical body. However, his physical body was indeed terrifying. His hand slowly pried open the void hand, but he was still unable to completely break free. Senior, the person I was talking about is still alive. You gave me a chance to meet him. I will not let you down, Yi Qinghan gasped for breath and said hoarsely. Whoosh! The three figures at the door lost control and were directly dragged into the saintess's residence by an invisible hand. In a courtyard near a mountain and a river, the spiritual energy in the surroundings was dense. A woman about 1.75 meters tall with blonde hair draped over her shoulders, wearing a long black dress. Just by looking at her back, one could tell that she was the most beautiful woman in the world. It made one's heart beat faster involuntarily. This person waved her hand and controlled the great Tao of the heavens. She gently pinched her jade-like hand, and a small flower appeared in her hand. Yi Qinghan and the other two appeared in the courtyard. Hiss! Yi Qinghan sucked in a breath of cold air. He did not expect the goddess of love to be so much more powerful than the chess saint and Xiahou Jizun. She was probably even more terrifying than Xiahou He, who was blessed by the heavens. You better not joke with me about this. Otherwise, you are dead, even if you are the disciple of the heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage. The woman did not turn her head. Her voice was like the sound of nature, but it was filled with killing intent and coldness. It made one's hair stand on end. Yi Qinghan felt as if his spine was being pierced by needles. The pain penetrated into his bone marrow, and goosebumps appeared all over his body. This goddess of love was too scary. I am speaking the truth. I saw a person stepping on stars in the heaven-sealing prison of the Holy Empire. He was chained up, and I could not see his strength. But at the very least, his cultivation should be close to that of a saint. He was very young, and I cannot describe his appearance. Because I have too little time, I could not communicate with him. But I saw clearly that there were 9 stars under his feet, just like the stars. Yi Qinghan hurriedly said. The goddess of love turned her head. Her face was so beautiful that it took one's breath away. In an instant, peerless beauties like your saint and Fanine could not be compared to her. The goddess of love's eyes and blonde hair were similar to your saint's, but her aura was like that of a fairy. This aura was seen on the green lotus sword fairy, and no one dared to blaspheme it. Yi Qinghan and Lin Wuqian did not dare to look her in the eyes, and quickly lowered their heads. This pair of eyes had an additional ability compared to your saint's, and that was the ability to control all living things. It could make a saint self-destruct. A saint could not kill a saint, but it could kill himself. This was another person with extraordinary talent after the Green Lotus Sword Fairy. It was even more frightening than a great saint. The golden eyes seemed to have an endless black hole vortex that could devour everything. What does what you said have to do with me? What does it have to do with the star chessboard? The goddess of love was as cold as ice as she asked indifferently. Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows and asked, I just want to know if this person is the crown prince of the Daoyuo star realm, the 9-star saint. The goddess of love shook her head and replied, I don't know. Based on your description, I can't be sure. After all, the 9-star saint and I are only soul friends. We have never had any physical contact, so I don't know if there is a 9-star alignment under his feet. The goddess of love was still a virgin. Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched. He did not expect this woman to be so infatuated. They were only soul friends, and she could not forget them for countless years. What's the star chessboard about? The goddess of love stared at Yi Qinghan and asked in a deep voice. Yi Qinghan did not hide anything and said directly, there was an orphan princess of the Daoyuo star realm who appeared in the eastern desolate realm with the star chessboard. I accidentally saved her. She was too young, and seemed to have been sealed. She knows nothing about what happened back then, so I can't be sure who the person in the sealed sky prison is. Huff huff huff. A glimmer of light and hope appeared in the goddess of love's eyes. After all, she had never seen the corpse of the 9-star saint, so she could not be sure if he was dead. However, the Holy Empire was too powerful, and even the great sage was suppressed. She naturally thought that he was dead. Yi Qinghan's words once again ignited her fighting spirit. The goddess of love stared at Yi Qinghan and said firmly, help me find out. I will support your request. Chapter 21-26. The goddess of love stared at Yi Qinghan. There was finally some emotion in her eyes, but it made Yi Qinghan feel even more pressured. Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly. I can't enter the heaven-sealing prison again. I'm afraid that if I'm caught, I won't have the chance to appear again. The goddess of love did not care. She only said coldly, think of your own way. There is nothing in this world that is impossible. I'll give you time. I'll support your matter first. That's my sincerity. Yi Qinghan rubbed his head. Sure enough, beautiful women weren't easy to deal with. For example, Bailey Chenxiang, Green Lotus Sword Immortal, and the woman in front of him. Once they decided on something, there was no room for objection. Going to the heaven-sealing prison is gambling with your life. If you lose, you die. If you win, you may not survive. Yi Qinghan muttered to himself. But when he thought about it carefully, hadn't everything he obtained been exchanged with his life? However, Lin Wuqian was not willing to let Yi Qinghan exchange his life for his marriage. He shook his head and said, even if you don't support my marriage with Yar, I won't let my master exchange his life for mine. It's not up to you to decide. Help me now, and you may live. If you don't help me now, I can send you to your deaths. No one can save you. The goddess of love flashed coldly. She did not look loving at all. She was clearly a demon. Yi Qinghan was speechless. He could only smile bitterly and say, I'll think of another way. I promise to help you find out the identity of that person. In fact, I also want to find out the identity of that person. That's why I came to see you. Okay. The goddess of love nodded calmly. Then, she looked at Lin Wuqian and Yarsheng. A talented man and a beautiful woman. You are a good match. I saw your courage just now. You dared to go against the will of the saint for your master. You are a sentimental person. However, the husband of the Emperor Saintess is not only about love and courage. It also depends on your wisdom, strength, talent, and opportunity. Although the goddess of love was only about 1.75 meters tall, she looked like she was looking down on all living things. Yi Qinghan and Lin Wuqian were always a head shorter than her. Lin Wuqian's will was strong, but at this moment, he couldn't refute. This woman's temperament and aura were only slightly weaker than Green Lotus Sword Fairies. This difference was huge for a saint, but for Lin Wuqian, who was in the upper realm, it didn't make any difference. Based on the saint's assessment alone, Lin Wuqian said with a bow. The goddess of love looked at Lin Wuqian, raised 4 fingers, and said, if you fail one of the 4 tests, I can't convince myself to support you. Strength, wisdom, talent, and opportunity? Lin Wuqian asked curiously. The goddess of love nodded and said, the first test is strength. I will give you 2 years to defeat all the top 30 masters in my territory in the past million years. This is the name list of the 30 people that I approve of, not the 30 people who have a reputation in the underworld. Whoosh! The goddess of love waved her hand, and a rune appeared in Lin Wuqian's mind. It was engraved with the names and locations of the 30 masters. Every one of them was described clearly. Before Lin Wuqian could take a closer look, the goddess of love said, the second test is wisdom. There is a maze here. If you can walk out of it in 3 months, you will pass the test. The third test is luck. There is a small secret realm in my territory. There is a piece of my experience in that secret realm. It has been hidden in the depths of the secret realm for countless years, and no one has found it yet. If you can find it within a year, you will pass the third test. The fourth test is talent. Once you have obtained my experience, I will give you another 10 years to comprehend it to the small success realm. The 4 tests weren't difficult, but they were difficult in terms of time. Each test only gave a short period of time, so it was no wonder that no one had passed the test until now. No one can help you. Yi Qinghan, you 2 stay in the mansion. Your time starts now. Pass the test within 14 years and reach here. You will pass, the goddess of love said coldly. Yi Qinghan shrugged and patted Lin Wuqian's shoulder. He said, you can only rely on yourself for this. I can't help you much, but I will give you a little spiritual pet. I hope it will be useful. After saying this, Yi Qinghan forced the little divine bird out of his bloodline. The little divine bird looked at Yi Qinghan with an aggrieved expression and said, if there's anything, go find my father. Why are you looking for me? Yi Qinghan pinched the divine feather on the little divine bird's forehead and said calmly, I will give you to my disciple. Stay by his side. If you dare to cause trouble, I will pluck all your feathers. Wow! The little divine bird was so scared that its wings exploded. It glared at Yi Qinghan and almost cursed out loud. Whoosh! Without waiting for the little divine bird to curse, Yi Qinghan pinched its little claw and dripped a drop of blood on Lin Wuqian's forehead. A master-servant contract was automatically formed. Fuck you. If you want to give someone else a favor, then give my father to someone else. Why give it to me? I have nothing to do with you. The little divine bird finally couldn't take it anymore. It hugged its little claw and sucked on it, afraid that it would waste a drop of blood. Yi Qinghan rolled his eyes. This little bastard seemed to be even more difficult to deal with than the big bastard. Looking at its resentful face, he couldn't help but rub his hands and say, do you believe that I will give your mother away and make you an orphan? Suddenly, the little divine bird became obedient and said to Lin Wuxian, "Let's go. I am too lazy to argue with an idiot." Lin Wuxian was speechless, but was amused and laughed. The goddess of love looked at the little divine bird with interest. She didn't expect there to be such a spiritual pet in the world. Lin Wuxian looked at Yi Qinghan's face and didn't dare to let the little divine bird provoke Yi Qinghan again. He hurriedly took the little divine bird and left the saintess mansion. Looked at Lin Wuxian's back and asked worriedly, "Grandmother, if those old monsters in your territory attack him, won't Wuxian be in danger?" The goddess of love replied indifferently, "This is also within the scope of the comprehensive assessment of luck, strength, and wisdom. If he can't protect himself, how can he protect you in the future?" When Yi Qinghan heard this, he shook his head and sighed. Beautiful women really can't be provoked. What kind of assessment is this? It's clearly a matter of life and death. The goddess of love coldly glanced at Yi Qinghan and waved her hand. "Go out. Don't disturb me if there's nothing important. Your range of activity is 3,000 miles around the holy city of love. If you dare to leave to help Lin Wuxian, our agreement ends here." Smiled bitterly and said respectfully, "Yes, we will follow your orders." Yi Qinghan and shook their heads and were about to leave when the goddess of love suddenly said, "Make that bastard leave the holy city of love. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude." The bastard was naturally referring to the light saint. Back then, the light saint had voted against the goddess of love because he admired her. Who would have thought that love would turn into hatred? One mistake would cause everlasting regret. Even now, they couldn't even be considered friends. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.